Hi there, friends. Thanks for tuning in to another Harry. Get ready for an incredible journey as we present what if Harry and Wednesday discovered they share a prophecy darker than Voldemort's. If you find our stories entertaining, a simple like and subscribe would mean everything to us. Your support motivates us to create more. Here we go. Chapter 1, When Worlds Collide. Harry's boots splashed through the puddles as he ducked under the police tape. Rain pounded the cobblestone alley, washing blood into the gutter in thin pink rivers. 3 bodies lay arranged in a perfect triangle, their limbs positioned with mathematical precision. No ordinary killer did this. Thought you ministry types would have shown up sooner, Detective Inspector Mills said, flipping her notebook closed. This is the 3rd scene like this in 2 weeks. Harry Potter nodded, crouching beside the nearest victim. 7 years as an Auror and he still hadn't gotten used to the smell of death. We only got jurisdiction when the symbols showed up. He gestured toward the wall where crimson markings gleamed wet in the drizzle. Not blood, something else. Something older. Any idea what they mean? Mills asked. Harry lied smoothly. Working on it. Truth was, nobody at the ministry had a clue. Not Hermione, not the Department of Mysteries, not even the dustiest books in the restricted archives. These symbols predated modern magic. Maybe all magic. Mills sighed. Well, I'll clear my men out. Just, catch whatever psycho is doing this, yeah. That's the plan, Harry said, though his gut told him they weren't dealing with a person at all. After the detective left, Harry cast privacy charms and pulled out his wand. The air felt wrong here, heavy, like the moment before lightning strikes. He muttered detection spells, watching colors bloom and fade around the bodies. No magical signatures he recognized. Instead of the typical wizard's magical residue, something akin to fingerprints, he found only a strange void, as if something had deliberately erased its tracks. His enchanted phone buzzed. A text from Ron, Hermione found something. Says it's urgent. Harry took one last look at the scene and disapparated. 3,000 miles away, Wednesday Addams stood in the dim light of Miskatonic University's forbidden archives, black-painted fingernails tracing ancient text. Outside, Massachusetts thunder rolled across campus, but she barely noticed. The leather-bound book before her, Prophecies of the Nameless, had consumed her attention for 6 straight hours. A graduate assistant appeared at the end of the shelf. Miss Addams. Library's closing. Wednesday didn't look up. 10 more minutes. Professor Armitage was very clear. Wednesday turned slowly, her dark eyes meeting the assistant's. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The assistant swallowed hard. I'll lock up when I finish my rounds. 40 minutes. When footsteps faded, Wednesday returned to the text. Most of these prophecies were useless, vague predictions about floods and famines and the rise and fall of forgotten kingdoms. But buried among them, a recurring theme caught her attention, references to the Twin Darkness and the Scarred One and the Midnight Child. She carefully photographed the pages with her modified camera. The university's wards prevented magical copying, but good old-fashioned technology worked fine. Her phone vibrated in her pocket, probably her mother checking if she'd be home for her brother Pugsley's newest explosive demonstration. Instead, it was an automated alert from her tracking program. The algorithm she'd created to search for specific magical anomalies had found something. An incident in London with energy signatures matching the prophecy patterns. Wednesday packed her materials methodically. She'd need to book a flight immediately. Or perhaps her Uncle Fester could arrange faster transportation. His contacts in the supernatural underground had access to methods of travel the regular magical community preferred to pretend didn't exist. As she left the archive, a strange sensation crawled up her spine. In the reflection of a glass display case, she thought she saw something move behind her, a shadow with no source, flowing like ink in water. But when she turned, nothing was there except rows of ancient books. For the first time in years, Wednesday Addams felt genuinely unsettled. It's called the prophecy of converging darkness, Hermione explained, pushing an ancient stone tablet across her desk. It predates the ministry by at least 2,000 years. Harry studied the worn stone. The same symbols from the murder scenes were etched into its surface. How did you find this? Pure luck. The Department of Mysteries received it last month from an archaeological dig in Cornwall. It was catalogued and shelved until your case flags triggered a connection. Hermione looked exhausted, her ministry robes rumpled from what was likely an all-night research session. Harry, this is serious. The preliminary translation suggests some kind of awakening ritual. Ron, lounging in the corner of Hermione's office, tossed a stress ball from hand to hand. Always bloody rituals, isn't it? Never just a nice dark wizard who wants to talk things out. Harry ignored him. What kind of awakening? Hermione's face tightened. Something called the Void Walker. References are scarce, but it appears to be an entity that exists between dimensions. The prophecy describes two individuals who serve as conduits, I suppose. Gateways for this thing to enter our world. And the murders? Preparation. Weakening the barriers. She hesitated. Harry, there's more. The conduits are described as the twice-marked survivor, and the child born of darkness and delight. Harry's hand instinctively went to his lightning scar. You think the first one is me? Your scar from Voldemort, your connection to death, twice-marked fits. Ron stopped tossing the ball. Who's the other one then? No idea, Hermione said. But according to this, both conduits will be drawn to the awakening sites. If these murder scenes are part of the ritual. Harry stood abruptly. I need to get back there. Harry, wait, Hermione grabbed his arm. Robards needs to know about this. The whole department. And tell them what? That another prophecy has my name on it. That I'm somehow connected to ritual murders. Harry shook his head. Let me investigate first. If I find something concrete, then we'll bring in the department. Hermione looked like she wanted to argue, but nodded reluctantly. Be careful. And take this. She handed him a small silver device resembling a compass. It's calibrated to detect dimensional instabilities. If this Void Walker thing is trying to cross over, this should give you some warning. Ron clapped him on the shoulder. Want me to come with? George can watch the shop. No, Harry said, perhaps too quickly. After everything they'd been through together, he still felt protective of his friends. I'm just looking around. But keep your coin ready, if I need backup, you'll be the first to know. As Harry headed for the door, Ron called after him, hey, maybe this time the prophecy's about someone else with a scar. Could be that bloke from Magical Maintenance who got hit with the exploding teakettle last month. Harry's laugh felt hollow even to himself. Wednesday stepped out of the black cab into London's midnight drizzle. The abandoned church loomed against the skyline, its Gothic spires perfect jagged teeth against the cloudy sky. Police barriers surrounded the building, but no officers remained, just fluttering yellow tape and the faint residue of magical wards. Moving silently, Wednesday slipped through a gap in the fence. The lock on the side door yielded to a charm her great-aunt had taught her, one that exploited the fundamental connection between metal and the earth it came from. The door swung open with a groan that echoed through the empty nave. Inside, the air tasted metallic. Beneath the standard preservation spells cast by magical law enforcement, Wednesday sensed something else, a current running through the space like a live wire. The murder scene had been cleaned up, but power lingered. She approached the altar where, according to the police report she'd hacked, 3 bodies had been arranged in ritualistic fashion. Kneeling, she removed a small velvet bag from her coat and extracted a black candle, a vial of graveyard dirt, and a silver needle. Show me, she whispered, pricking her finger and letting 3 drops of blood fall onto the candle. The flame that ignited was blue-black, casting shadows that moved against the natural direction of the light. In the candle's glow, spectral images formed, echoes of the crime. 3 victims laid out in a triangle. Symbols carved into flesh. A hooded figure moving with unnatural grace. And something else, watching. Not the killer, but something beyond, looking through from somewhere else. Wednesday's breath caught. The entity turned as if sensing her observation, its form indistinct but its attention unmistakable. The candle flame surged upward in a column of dark fire. Interesting, a male voice said from behind her. Wednesday reacted instantly, spinning with a curved blade already in hand. A man stood 10 feet away, wand raised but not pointed directly at her. Messy black hair, glasses, and a lightning bolt scar just visible on his forehead. She recognized him immediately, hard not to, given his fame. "Mr. Potter," she said coolly, not lowering her blade. "I'd say it's a pleasure, but I try not to lie before midnight." Harry Potter's eyes flicked to her ritual implements, then back to her face. "You're trespassing at a crime scene. Using blood magic. And you know who I am. That's 3 reasons for me to take you in for questioning. 4, if you count the lock-picking charm. 5, if you're particularly concerned about the graveyard dirt, it's from a protected cemetery." Wednesday remained perfectly still. "But you won't take me in." "Why's that?" "Because I'm here for the same reason you are." She nodded toward his pocket, where a silver device glowed faintly. "That detector shows dimensional instability. You're tracking something that shouldn't be here." "So am I." Harry's expression remained neutral, but she saw the calculation behind his eyes. "You have 1 minute to explain yourself before I call for backup." Wednesday extinguished her candle with a gesture. "My name is Wednesday Adams. I've been tracking a pattern of ritual killings connected to a pre-Merlin prophecy about an entity called the Void Walker. The murders create thin spots between dimensions, allowing it to reach through. And judging by your presence and that detector, you already know most of this." Harry's wand lowered slightly. "The Addams family. I've heard rumors. All true, probably." A ghost of a smile touched Wednesday's lips. "Especially the worst ones." Before Harry could respond, his detector began vibrating violently. At the same moment, Wednesday felt a pressure change, like diving deep underwater. The temperature plummeted, frost crystallizing across the stone floor. "Something's coming," she said unnecessarily. Harry moved closer, back nearly touching hers as they surveyed the church. "What did you do with that ritual?" "Looked into the past." "But something looked back." Wednesday drew a second blade from her boot. "The barrier's thinnest where the deaths occurred. Your magical authorities cleared the bodies but didn't cleanse the site properly." "There is no properly in the manual for interdimensional entities," Harry said dryly. The air before the altar rippled like heat waves, distorting the space behind it. A sound built from nowhere, not heard but felt, vibrating in their bones and teeth. Dark shapes pressed against reality itself, like hands pushing against a membrane. "Suggestions?" Harry asked, one trained on the distortion. Wednesday reached into her coat and withdrew a small black box. "We run." "I don't run." "Then you'll die pointlessly. This isn't something we can fight, not yet, not without understanding what we're facing." She flipped open the box, revealing what looked like a compass filled with swirling green liquid. "This will take us somewhere safe, but only works once. Decision time, Potter." The distortion bulged outward, the pressure intensifying until breathing became difficult. A long, ink-black appendage began emerging, not quite arm, not quite tentacle, but something more fundamentally wrong. Harry swore under his breath. "Fine. Together." They each placed a finger on the compass. Wednesday whispered words in a language that made Harry's ears ache. The world twisted, folded, and snapped, and they crashed onto a hardwood floor, gasping for breath. Harry rolled to his feet, wand still in hand, taking in his surroundings. They were in what appeared to be a library, though like no library he'd ever seen. The ceiling soared 3 stories up, every wall lined with bookshelves containing ancient tomes and glass cases displaying objects that radiated dark magic. A massive fireplace dominated one wall, green flames crackling without heat. Mounted animal heads adorned the spaces between shelves, some recognizable, others distinctly not. "Where are we?" he demanded, helping Wednesday up reflexively. "My family's townhouse. London." She brushed herself off, seemingly unbothered by their rough landing. "No one's here at the moment, they're at the ancestral estate for my cousin. It's unraveling ceremony." "Your cousin what?" "It. Capital I. Long story." Wednesday moved to a cabinet and extracted 2 crystal glasses. "Drink?" "Nearly being consumed by an interdimensional horror always leaves me parched." Harry stared. "You're offering me a nightcap after we nearly died? Would you prefer tea? We have a lovely hemlock blend." Despite everything, Harry laughed. "Just water, thanks." She poured from a decanter that looked suspiciously like it contained anything but water, but Harry accepted the glass anyway. At this point, poisoning seemed the least of his worries. "So," he said after a cautious sip that tasted surprisingly like normal water, "you know about the Void Walker." Wednesday settled into a high-backed chair that looked uncomfortably like it was made from human bones. "I've been researching it for months. The prophecy first caught my attention during my studies in forbidden magical texts, benefits of attending a university with a remarkable collection of grimoires normal wizarding institutions pretend don't exist." "And what does this prophecy say exactly?" "That the Void Walker will return during the celestial alignment 3 weeks from now. That it requires 2 individuals to fully manifest, the twice-marked survivor and the child born of darkness and delight." Her dark eyes fixed on Harry's scar. "I assume the first refers to you." Harry's jaw tightened. "And the second?" Wednesday's smile was thin. "My full name is Wednesday Friday Adams. I was born during a solar eclipse while my mother was struck by lightning for the 3rd time that day. She describes it as the most delightful pain imaginable." "That's unusual, I know. We Adamses pride ourselves on it." She set down her glass. "The prophecy states we're connected to this entity, keys to either its imprisonment or release. The murders are someone's attempt to force our involvement." Harry's aura instincts kicked in. "Who's behind the killings?" "A cult called the Crimson Court. They worship chaos entities and believe the Void Walker will remake reality into something more interesting." Wednesday stood and moved to one of the bookshelves, extracting an ancient text bound in what looked distressingly like human skin. "They've existed for centuries, operating in shadows deeper than even the Death Eaters dared explore." Harry joined her as she opened the book to reveal illustrations of robed figures performing rituals around strange, geometric patterns, the same patterns from the murder scenes. "Why haven't I heard of them before?" he asked. "Your ministry prefers to pretend certain magical traditions don't exist. Anything predating wand-based magic or falling outside European practices gets classified, buried, or outright denied." There was an edge to Wednesday's voice. "My family has always operated in those overlooked spaces." Harry wanted to argue but couldn't. The ministry's willful blindness to non-conventional magic had been a source of frustration throughout his career. "We need to tell the department," he said instead. "Get a team assembled, and what will they do? Your aurors are trained to fight dark wizards, not interdimensional entities. Standard magical countermeasures are useless against the Void Walker." Wednesday closed the book with a thump. "Besides, there's a reason neither of us reported our findings before tonight." Harry fell silent. She was right. He hadn't gone to Robards because deep down, he knew how the ministry would react to another prophecy with his name on it: containment, control, using him as bait while keeping him in the dark. Standard procedure. "So what do you suggest?" he finally asked. "We need more information about the prophecy. The complete text, not fragments. And we need to understand our connection to the Void Walker." Wednesday returned to her chair. I know where we can start, but you won't like it. Try me. Beneath Stonehenge, there's a temple older than the monument itself. Texts reference it as a place where the veils between worlds are thin, a place where prophecies were once recorded in their entirety. She watched his reaction carefully. It's also heavily warded by your ministry. Harry ran a hand through his hair. Breaking into a restricted magical site. Perfect. If it helps, we'd be breaking in to prevent the end of reality as we know it. Surprisingly, that doesn't help much. Harry checked his watch. Nearly 3 a.m. I need to report in soon or questions will be asked. Wednesday nodded. Go. Maintain appearances. Meet me tomorrow night at midnight, northeast side of Stonehenge. I'll handle the preliminary wards. Harry hesitated. How do I know I can trust you? You don't. But consider this, if I wanted to complete the ritual and unleash the Void Walker, I wouldn't need your help to do it. Her expression remained neutral, but her eyes held an intensity that reminded Harry uncomfortably of Snape. We're bound by this prophecy whether we like it or not, Mr. Potter. Our choices now determine whether we control that binding or are controlled by it. Harry studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. Midnight. Come alone. I always do. As Harry prepared to apparate, Wednesday added, one more thing. Dreams. Have you had unusual ones recently? The question caught him off guard. For weeks, he'd been dreaming of standing in an ancient stone chamber, facing someone across an altar while shadows moved around them. He dismissed it as stress. Why? He asked instead of answering. Because prophecy speaks through dreams first. Wednesday's expression revealed nothing. Sweet nightmares, Mr. Potter. Harry disapparated with her words echoing in his mind. The ministry was quiet when Harry arrived at his office, but not empty. Magical law enforcement never truly slept. Junior Aurors manning the night shift nodded as he passed, used to his irregular hours. His office, small, cluttered, walls covered with case notes and maps, offered little comfort tonight. Harry sat heavily, rubbing his temples. Another prophecy. Another destiny not of his choosing. Part of him wanted to ignore it all, to pretend this was just another case. But the memory of that thing emerging in the church, the wrongness of it, told him this wasn't something he could walk away from. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Erasmus Crowley, Senior Undersecretary for Special Threats, stood in the doorway. Tall, immaculately dressed despite the hour, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that always seemed to know more than they revealed. Potter, Crowley said, voice smooth as expensive whiskey. Working late? Harry straightened. Following leads on the ritual murders. Anything to report? Crowley entered without waiting for invitation, closing the door behind him. Nothing concrete yet. The lie came easily. After years at the ministry, Harry had learned which truths to hold back and from whom. Crowley had always struck him as someone who valued control above justice. Interesting. Crowley examined the caseboard. Because I received reports of magical disturbances at St. Catherine's Church tonight. Right where the third murder took place. Witnesses described seeing someone matching your description. Harry kept his expression neutral. I was following up on evidence. Standard procedure. And did you follow standard procedure when you allowed a civilian to perform blood magic at a crime scene? Harry's stomach dropped, but his face betrayed nothing. Sir. Crowley smiled thinly. We've been monitoring Miss Adams since she entered the country. The Adams family has connections that concern the ministry. Especially given the nature of these killings. You think she's involved? I think it's quite a coincidence that she arrives in London just as these rituals intensify. Crowley moved closer. And I think an Auror meeting with her privately, then failing to report it, raises questions. Harry met his gaze. I was pursuing a lead. If you've been monitoring her, you know she has information about these killings. Information she should share with the department, not with you alone. Crowley's tone hardened. This case is bigger than you realize, Potter. If there's even a possibility of another prophecy, Harry's head snapped up. What do you know about a prophecy? A calculating look crossed Crowley's face. Enough to know when an auror isn't telling me everything. You're officially removed from this investigation, effective immediately. Turn over all your notes and evidence by morning. You can't do that, I just did. Crowley opened the door. Go home, Potter. Get some rest. And remember where your loyalties should lie. After Crowley left, Harry sat motionless, mind racing. The ministry was already involved, already watching Wednesday, already suspecting the prophecy. Which meant they'd be watching him too. He quickly gathered essential case notes, shrinking them to fit in his pocket. Then he penned 2 identical messages, one to Ron and Hermione, one to Wednesday, warning them about Crowley's suspicions. After charming the notes with privacy spells that would cause them to burn after reading, he sent them off with the department owls. Harry left the ministry through a service entrance, using disillusionment charms to avoid being tracked. If Crowley wanted him off the case, fine. He'd investigate on his own, outside ministry constraints. First, he needed sleep. Tomorrow promised to be complicated in ways even his eventful life hadn't prepared him for. Wednesday received Harry's warning as dawn broke over London. She burned the message after reading it, scattering the ashes in her morning tea before drinking it. The ministry's involvement complicated matters, but wasn't unexpected. Bureaucracies feared what they couldn't control, and nothing was less controllable than ancient prophecies involving entities from beyond conventional reality. In her temporary bedroom at the family's London residence, Wednesday spread her research across the floor in precise arrangement. Police reports on the murders. Fragments of prophecy texts. Family grimoires containing references to the Void Walker. Star charts marking the upcoming alignment. And at the center, 2 photographs, one of Harry Potter from a newspaper clipping, and one of herself from university records. Both marked with the same symbols that had appeared at the murder scenes. A soft chime from her modified detection equipment alerted her to magical surveillance wards being established outside. The ministry worked quickly. Wednesday calmly gathered her materials into a weathered leather satchel, then approached the large antique mirror hanging on the wall. She pressed her palm against the glass, whispering words in an ancient language. The reflection rippled, showing not her bedroom but a stone chamber deep beneath the house, one of many escape routes the Addams family had maintained for centuries. Stepping through the mirror, Wednesday sealed it behind her. The ministry might track conventional magical transportation, but the old ways, blood magic, sympathetic connections, mirror walking, remained largely undetectable to modern magical monitoring. In the underground chamber, lit only by phosphorescent fungi growing along the walls, Wednesday activated a communication device disguised as a raven skull. Cousin it, I require transportation. Untraceable. Tonight. The skull's jaw clacked in response, the sound translating to affirmation in the Addams family's private code. With arrangements made, Wednesday settled cross-legged on the damp stone floor, closed her eyes, and began the mental exercises her grandmother had taught her for prophetic dreaming. If the Void Walker was trying to communicate through dreams, she would meet it halfway. The dream began as it always did, Harry standing in a circular stone chamber, ancient symbols carved into every surface. An altar of black stone dominated the center, and across from him stood a figure in shadow. But this time, the figure stepped forward into the dim light. Wednesday Addams, dressed in black, her pale skin almost luminous against the darkness. You're really here, Harry said, realizing this wasn't an ordinary dream. How? Dreamwalking, Wednesday replied. An old family technique. Useful for communication when other methods might be monitored. Harry glanced around the chamber. Where are we? The temple beneath Stonehenge, I believe. At least, how our subconscious interprets it. She approached the altar. This is where the prophecy was first recorded. Why are we seeing it in dreams? Because part of us is already connected to this place. To the prophecy. Wednesday placed her hands on the altar. Look. The stone beneath her palms began to glow with soft blue light. Symbols appeared, flowing like water across the surface, the same symbols from the murder scenes, but arranged in complex patterns that somehow made sense to Harry despite never having studied them. I can read it, he said, surprised. As can I. The prophecy connects us to its knowledge. Wednesday's eyes met his across the altar. It speaks of the Void Walker's return when the stars align in the pattern of the ancient door. The celestial alignment 3 weeks from now. Harry studied the flowing text. Here, it says the twice-marked survivor and the child of darkness will stand as gatekeepers. Gatekeepers, not vessels, Wednesday noted. The distinction matters. We're not meant to host this entity, but to determine whether it passes. The chamber trembled slightly, dust falling from the ceiling. The shadows in the corners seemed to move with purpose now, stretching toward them. Something's watching, Harry said, hand instinctively reaching for a wand that wasn't there in this dream state. The Void Walker. It's aware of us. Wednesday's expression remained calm, but Harry sensed her tension. We should go. It's not safe to remain too long. How do we wake up? Like this. Wednesday reached across the altar and took his hand. Electric shock jolted through Harry's system, and he woke gasping in his bed, sheets tangled around him, the ghost sensation of Wednesday's hand still tingling against his palm. Bright morning light streamed through his windows. On his nightstand, the dimensional detector Hermione had given him was pulsing rapidly, its needle spinning in circles. Harry grabbed his phone, dialing Ron's secure number. Hey, mate, Ron answered cheerfully. Bit early, isn't it? I need a favor, Harry said without preamble. Something off the books. Ron's tone immediately shifted to serious. What kind of off books are we talking? Borrowing equipment off books or potential career-ending off books? The second one. A pause. Meet me at the shop in an hour. Back in trance. Harry ended the call and headed for the shower. The dream felt more real than his waking life right now, the symbols clearer, the connection to Wednesday stronger, the sense of impending doom more immediate. As water cascaded over him, Harry wondered when exactly his life had started to feel normal only during the apocalyptic moments. Probably around age 11, if he was honest with himself. Weasley's Wizard Wheezes had evolved since its humble beginnings. While the Diagon Alley storefront remained dedicated to jokes and pranks, the business had expanded to include a research division developing everything from defensive magical items to specialized communication devices. Ron had proven remarkably skilled at seeing practical applications for George's more outlandish inventions. Harry slipped through the back entrance, a nondescript door in the adjacent alley that required a specific sequence of taps with both wand and knuckles. Inside, the narrow hallway led to a workshop cluttered with prototypes and testing equipment. Ron waited alongside Hermione, both wearing expressions of concern. Got your message, Hermione said, hugging him briefly. Crowley's making moves. Harry nodded, quickly filling them in on his encounter with the undersecretary and his meeting with Wednesday Addams. He left out the shared dream, some things were too difficult to explain, even to his closest friends. The Addams family, Ron whistled low. Dad mentioned them once. Said they make the Malfoys look positively cuddly. They operate outside conventional magical society, Hermione added. Old magic. Pre-wand traditions the ministry pretends to regulate but actually fears. Harry leaned against a workbench. She knows about the prophecy, more than we do. And she has information about the cult behind the killings. So you're breaking into a restricted archaeological site with her. Hermione's tone was carefully neutral. Based on a prophecy that may link you to an interdimensional entity. Pretty much. Ron grinned. Just like old times, eh? Hermione shot him a look before turning back to Harry. Crowley's not wrong to be concerned. If this prophecy is real, it is, Harry said with certainty that surprised even himself. I can feel it, Hermione. The same way I could feel the connection to Voldemort. Something's coming, and Wednesday and I are somehow the key to stopping it. Ron and Hermione exchanged glances, a married couple's silent communication. What do you need from us? Ron finally asked. Cover. If Crowley's watching me, he'll know if I suddenly disappear tonight. Ron nodded. Polyjuice party at our place. You arrive as yourself, leave as me while I pretend to be you. And I need information on the security protocols at Stonehenge, Harry added. Current rotation schedules, ward configurations. Hermione sighed. I can access that through the Ministry archive. But Harry, be careful with Wednesday Addams. The little I've read about her family suggests they have their own agenda. Always. I know, Harry said. But right now, our agendas align. Stop the murders, prevent the Void Walker from entering our dimension, figure out what this prophecy really means for both of us. And if they don't align later? Hermione pressed. Harry's expression hardened slightly. Then I'll handle it. I've dealt with prophecies before. Yeah, and it only nearly killed us about a dozen times, Ron muttered, but he was already moving toward a cabinet of prototype devices. Take these. Communication mirrors, work anywhere, even in magically dampened areas. And these. He handed Harry what looked like ordinary watches. Portable shield generators. Experimental, but they'll stop most combat spells. Hermione reluctantly extracted a folded parchment from her bag. Current security details for Stonehenge and surrounding magical sites. The temple you mentioned is listed as Restricted Zone 16. Heavy warding, constant monitoring. You'll need this to bypass the alarm system. She handed him a small silver tool resembling a tuning fork. Harry pocketed everything. Thanks. Both of you. Just promise me one thing, Hermione said, gripping his arm. If you find something beyond your ability to handle, you'll call for help. Real help, not just the two of you against an interdimensional horror. I promise, Harry said, knowing even as the words left his mouth that circumstances might force him to break it. The Stonehenge monument stood silent under cloudy skies, tourist areas long closed for the night. Harry, concealed under disillusionment charms, approached the northeast side where massive standing stones created deep shadows against the security lighting. His Auror training made avoiding the standard security patrols simple. Most were Muggle guards with predictable routes, supplemented by automated magical sensors he could detect and circumvent. The real challenge would be the temple entrance and its dedicated magical protections. You're late, Wednesday's voice came from apparently empty air beside him. Harry cancelled his disillusionment charm, revealing himself. Ministry complications. Had to ensure I wasn't followed. Wednesday appeared as she cancelled her own concealment. Not a standard disillusionment charm, Harry noted, but something older that seemed to bend light rather than reflect it. She wore practical black clothing, her dark hair pulled back tightly, a leather satchel across her body. We have a narrow window, she said without preamble. The guard rotation changes in 20 minutes, and the wards recalibrate shortly after. How do we access the temple? Wednesday led him to a seemingly unremarkable patch of ground 30 yards from the main stone circle. It's not directly beneath the monument, that's what the ministry wants people to believe. The true entrance is here. She knelt, brushing away loose soil to reveal a small depression. From her satchel, she extracted a vial of dark liquid that Harry suspected was blood, pouring 3 drops into the depression. Family blood, she explained, noting his expression. The Adams line connects to the original temple guardians. Convenient. Ancestral foresight. Wednesday placed her palm flat against the ground. Your turn. 3 drops of your blood here. Harry hesitated only briefly before using a small knife to nick his finger, allowing 3 drops to fall beside hers. The effect was immediate. The ground beneath their feet trembled, soil falling away to reveal ancient stonework in a spiral pattern. Runes etched into the stone began to glow with soft blue light, the same light from their shared dream. "The prophecy recognizes us," Wednesday said quietly. The stones shifted, realigning to create a narrow stairway leading down into darkness. From below, cool air carried the scent of age and something else, a metallic tang like ozone before lightning strikes. Harry activated one of the devices Ron had given him, clipping it to his belt. "This will disrupt the ministry's monitoring wards for about 30 minutes. After that, they'll know someone's here. Then we'd better hurry." Wednesday lit her wand with a nonverbal spell, the light it cast tinged slightly purple. "Stay close. The passages can shift." They descended into the earth, the stairs seeming to go much deeper than should be possible given their location. The walls were lined with the same symbols they'd seen at the murder sites and in their dream, but arranged in patterns that told a story Harry could somehow understand despite never having studied this language. "It's depicting the first arrival," Wednesday said, tracing the symbols with her fingertips. "When the Void Walker attempted to enter this dimension thousands of years ago." "How can we read this?" Harry asked. "The prophecy connects us to its knowledge," she replied, echoing her words from the dream. "The magic here recognizes us as the ones mentioned in the text." The stairway eventually opened into a large circular chamber, the same chamber from their dream. An altar of black stone dominated the center, surrounded by a mosaic floor depicting what appeared to be a map of stars and planets in unfamiliar configurations. "The celestial alignment," Wednesday said, studying the floor. "This shows when the dimensional barriers will be thinnest." Harry approached the altar cautiously. Unlike in the dream, it remained dark, its surface blank. "How do we activate it?" "The same way we opened the entrance." Wednesday joined him at the altar. "Blood of the gatekeepers." Together, they each placed 3 drops of blood on the smooth stone surface. The chamber responded immediately, torches along the walls igniting with blue-white flame, the altar beginning to glow from within. Symbols appeared on its surface, flowing and changing like liquid light. "It's the complete prophecy," Wednesday said, eyes reflecting the ethereal light. "Not just fragments." Harry studied the flowing text, the meaning somehow clear despite the unfamiliar language. "When stars align in pattern of the ancient door, the void between shall press against the walls of being, 2 shall stand as gatekeepers at the threshold, the twice-marked survivor, death-touched and returning, the child of darkness and delight. Born of storms and shadow, together they hold power to bind or release what was banished before time was measured, if bound anew, a seal of centuries until the next. Alignment if released, reality reshaped to primal chaos, but beware. The Walker knows the gatekeepers and sends its servants to prepare the way. Blood sacrificed in sacred geometries opens windows through which influence flows, the gatekeepers themselves becoming keys, their choices determining all fates. The final ritual must be completed or prevented at the convergence of ley lines. When the celestial door stands open, neither gatekeeper can stand alone against the tide. United they command the threshold, divided they become vessels for what waits beyond." Harry looked up from the text to find Wednesday watching him. "It says we become vessels if we're divided. And that together we can control the threshold." Wednesday's expression remained unreadable. "The cult is trying to ensure we're divided, controlled by them to serve as vessels rather than gatekeepers. The convergence of ley lines, any idea where that is?" "Several possibilities. Major intersections exist at certain power sites, Glastonbury Tor, the Giant's Causeway, beneath London itself." Wednesday traced a symbol on the altar. "We need to," a sudden shift in the chamber's energy interrupted her. The blue flames flickered, dimming momentarily before flaring bright. The floor beneath them vibrated. "We're not alone," Harry said, wand ready. The air in the corner of the chamber rippled, distorting like heat waves, the same effect they'd witnessed in the church. Pressure built in the room, a heaviness that made breathing difficult. "It senses us," Wednesday said, voice steady despite the danger. The blood connection opened a temporary window. Harry moved closer to her, both of them backing toward the entrance while maintaining sight of the distortion. "Can you close it?" "Not without completing the full binding ritual, which we're not prepared for." Wednesday withdrew something from her satchel, a small obsidian disc covered in etched symbols. "This might buy us time." The distortion bulged outward, that same wrong appendage beginning to emerge, ink-black and somehow both solid and liquid simultaneously. The temperature plummeted, frost forming on the stone floor around them. Wednesday threw the obsidian disc into the center of the distortion. It hovered there for a moment before shattering with a sound like breaking glass. The fragments orbited the distortion rapidly, glowing with inner fire as they formed a barrier that pushed the appendage back. "Run," Wednesday said, already moving toward the exit. "That won't hold long." They sprinted up the stairway, the sounds of shattering stone echoing behind them as the entity fought against the temporary barrier. The stairs themselves seemed to shift beneath their feet, trying to reconfigure into a different pattern. "The temple's defenses are activating," Wednesday called over her shoulder. "It's trying to seal itself." Harry pointed his wand at the stairs ahead, casting a freezing charm that temporarily stabilized their position. "Keep moving." They emerged into the night air just as alarms began sounding, magical alerts that meant the ministry's monitoring wards had detected the disturbance. In the distance, the distinctive crack of apparition announced the arrival of response teams. "We need to split up," Harry said urgently. "If they catch us together, they'll know about the connection." Wednesday nodded once. "The Crimson Court will make their next move soon, completing the triangle of ritual sites. We need to be ready. How do I contact you?" She handed him what appeared to be an ordinary playing card, the Queen of Spades. "Blood on the corner activates it. One-time use, untraceable." Harry pocketed it, then handed her one of the communication mirrors. "This works anywhere. Keep it close." The sound of approaching voices grew louder. Wednesday's eyes met his, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Then she stepped back into the shadows and vanished, not apparition, but something else, a melting into darkness that left no magical trace. Harry quickly reapplied his disillusionment charm and moved in the opposite direction, slipping past the arriving Auror team led by none other than Erasmus Crowley himself. As he made his escape across the darkened field, Harry felt something he hadn't experienced in years, the weight of prophecy settling once again on his shoulders. But this time, at least, he wasn't facing it alone. For better or worse, he and Wednesday Addams were bound together by forces older than the wizarding world itself. The only question was whether they'd control their destiny, or be controlled by it. Madame Scarlet watched the magical monitors with interest as alerts flashed across multiple screens. Her private office deep within the Crimson Court's London headquarters offered perfect seclusion for observing ministry communications without detection. "They've found the temple," she noted to the hooded figure standing silently beside her desk. "Right on schedule." The figure, face hidden by an ornate mask of crimson and gold, spoke in a voice distorted by magic. "The gatekeepers have made contact with each other. The Walker is aware." "Excellent." Madame Scarlet rose, her elegant robes flowing around her like liquid shadow. Tall, with striking features framed by silver-streaked black hair, she carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to power. "Prepare the final ritual site. We must complete the triangle before the ministry understands what's happening." "And the gatekeepers? Let them investigate. Let them uncover the prophecy's true meaning." A smile curved her lips. "By the time they realize their role, the preparation will be complete. The alignment approaches, and when it comes," she gestured to a star chart on her wall, where celestial bodies were arranged in a configuration that would become reality in less than 3 weeks, "will ensure they serve as vessels, not gatekeepers." The figure bowed and departed, leaving Madame Scarlet alone with the monitors. She approached a covered object in the corner of the room, removing the velvet cloth to reveal a scrying mirror. Its surface showed not her reflection but the swirling darkness of the space between dimensions, and within it, watching with patient hunger, the entity they served. Soon, she promised. Your gatekeepers have heard your call. The door will open. The darkness in the mirror pulsed in acknowledgement, and Madame Scarlet felt the familiar electric thrill of communication with the Void Walker. Unlike the others who feared it, she embraced the coming chaos, the remaking of a reality she had always found disappointingly orderly. Let Potter and the Addams girl believe they could control the prophecy. In the end, like all humans confronted with power beyond comprehension, they would become what they were always meant to be, vessels for something greater than themselves. Chapter 2, Unholy Alliances. Harry slammed his apartment door, breathing hard. He'd barely made it back before ministry officials started checking Auror's whereabouts. His phone buzzed with messages, 3 from Robards asking where he was, 1 from Ron confirming their cover story was intact. You have visitors, a female voice said from his darkened living room. Harry's wand was up before his mind registered who was speaking. Hermione sat in his reading chair, Ron leaning against the wall behind her, both looking grim. Bloody hell, Harry lowered his wand. A little warning next time. Like the warning you should have given us before breaking into a restricted archaeological site. Hermione's voice was tight with worry. The entire department's on alert. Crowley's called an emergency session. Ron tossed him a copy of the Evening Prophet. You made the front page. Not officially, but. The headline read, Disturbance at Ancient Site, Ministry suspects dark activity. They don't mention you directly, Ron continued, but Crowley's telling the senior staff it was you. Harry sank onto his couch. It wasn't just me. The Void Walker, it tried to come through. We saw it. We. Hermione caught the pronoun immediately. Wednesday Addams was there. No point hiding it now. We accessed the temple, found the complete prophecy. Harry quickly recounted what they'd discovered, watching his friend's expressions shift from skepticism to concern. Gatekeepers, Ron repeated. That's a step up from the boy who lived, at least. It's not funny, Ron, Hermione said sharply. If this entity is real, if it can affect our dimension enough to create physical manifestations, it's real, Harry interrupted. And the Crimson Court is helping it cross over. They're planning another ritual killing to complete some kind of triangle. Where's Wednesday now? Hermione asked. I don't know exactly. We separated after the temple. But we have ways to contact each other. Harry pulled out the Queen of Spades card. According to the prophecy, we need to work together to stop this thing. Ron and Hermione exchanged glances, that married couple communication again. What? Harry demanded. It's just. Hermione hesitated. Are you sure you can trust her? The Addams family has a reputation for finding darkness fascinating, not fighting it. I don't need to trust her completely to work with her, Harry said. Right now, she knows more about this entity than anyone else. And the prophecy binds us whether we like it or not. A sudden crack of apparition in the hallway silenced them. Heavy footsteps approached Harry's door, followed by authoritative knocking. Auror Potter, a formal voice called. Ministry business. Open up. Ron quickly disillusioned himself while Hermione transfigured her appearance, becoming an unremarkable middle-aged woman. Harry messed up his hair and opened the door looking appropriately sleepy. 2 Aurors he recognized as Crowley's direct reports stood there, faces professionally blank. Sanders, Booth, Harry greeted them. It's nearly 2 a.m. What's going on? Undersecretary Crowley requests your immediate presence at the ministry, Sanders said stiffly. What for? He didn't specify, sir. Booth's eyes darted past Harry, noticing the disguised Hermione. We're instructed to escort you directly. I've got company, Harry gestured vaguely behind him. Can it wait until morning? I'm afraid not, sir. Harry sighed dramatically. Fine. Let me grab my robes. He closed the door and turned to his friends. Stall them, he whispered to Hermione. I need to get out of here. Where will you go? She asked urgently. To find answers. I'll contact you when I can. Harry summoned an overnight bag with essential supplies. Tell them I went to use the bathroom and disappeared. Ron cancelled his disillusionment. Use my brother Charlie's old place in Romania. Still under Fidelius, still safe. No, Harry said. If they're watching me this closely, they're watching you too. I need to go somewhere they'd never look. Hermione understood immediately. You're going to her, aren't you? To the Addams family. Harry didn't answer, which was answer enough. He grabbed his invisibility cloak from a hidden compartment in his bookshelf. Buy me 5 minutes. And Ron, if Crowley pushes too hard, use the recording we made of his conversation with Blackwood last year. The unauthorized surveillance blackmail. Ron grinned despite the tension. Saving that for a special occasion, were we? This qualifies. Harry pulled on the cloak. Be careful, both of you. Hermione hugged the empty air where he stood. You too. As Harry slipped out through his bedroom window, an old escape route he'd established years ago, he heard Hermione loudly engaging the Aurors in a complex discussion about magical privacy laws. Some things never changed. Wednesday sat cross-legged in the center of the séance room, surrounded by black candles and arcane symbols drawn in ash. The Addams family mansion in New Jersey loomed around her, creaking and groaning with familiar, comforting sounds. You're sure about this? Her mother asked, elegant even in concern. Morticia Addams stood in the doorway, her long black dress trailing along the floor, pale face luminous in the candlelight. I need answers, Mother. Wednesday didn't open her eyes. The British ministry is already hunting us. The Crimson Court is preparing their final ritual. Time is running short. Communion with ancient entities is dangerous, even for an Addams, Morticia cautioned. Your great-grandmother tried once. We still haven't found all of her. I'm not seeking communion. Just information. Wednesday finally looked up. Is Father ready with the containment circle? Of course, darling. Gomez would never miss an opportunity for potentially catastrophic mystical experimentation. Morticia's red lips curved in an affectionate smile. He's so excited he might spontaneously combust. Again. Wednesday returned to her meditation, centering herself as her mother glided away. The information from the temple confirmed what she had suspected, the Void Walker could be controlled if she and Potter worked together. But the nature of that control, the specific ritual required, that remained unclear. She heard the whisper of her father's footsteps, the distinctive cadence of a man who'd mastered 17 lethal dancing styles. Ready, Wednesday my dear. Gomez Addams announced cheerfully, twirling his mustache. Dapper in his pinstriped suit, he practically vibrated with enthusiasm. Containment circle established. Lurch is standing by with the emergency exsanguination kit, just in case. A low, mournful groan from the butler confirmed this statement. Thank you, Father. Wednesday stood, smoothing her black dress. Remember, if my eyes turn completely black and I speak in multiple voices simultaneously, activate the soul anchor and pull you back, Gomez finished, patting the strange mechanical device at his side. And if tentacles start emerging from your mouth, cut my head off immediately, Wednesday nodded. It would be the kindest option. That's my girl. Gomez beamed with paternal pride. Always thinking ahead. Wednesday took her position in the center of an intricate pattern drawn on the floor in various substances, some mundane like salt and ash, others best not specified in polite company. At each cardinal point stood an object of significance, a raven skull, a fragment of meteorite, an ancient text bound in unusual leather, and a crystal containing what appeared to be swirling smoke. Beginning now, she announced, slicing her palm with a ceremonial dagger. As blood dripped onto the central symbol, she began to recite words in a language that made the candle flames turn black. The temperature dropped rapidly, frost forming on the windows despite the summer night outside. The blood at the center of the circle began to move of its own accord, forming symbols that shifted and changed faster than the eye could follow. Wednesday continued the incantation, her voice steady even as the house began to shake around them. The walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting as reality itself grew thin. In the corners of the room, shadows deepened unnaturally, moving against the light. "It's working," Gomez whispered excitedly to Lurch, who responded with an apprehensive groan. The air above the circle rippled, tearing open to reveal not emptiness but something worse, a writhing darkness filled with shapes that shouldn't exist, angles that hurt the eyes, colors that had no place in the human visual spectrum. Wednesday's eyes rolled back, her body going rigid as her consciousness reached through the opening, seeking the knowledge she needed. Her lips moved, speaking words that echoed strangely, as if coming from very far away, the walker between worlds. Ancient before stars burned, seeks to return through the gatekeepers, convergence at the nexus point beneath the ancient city, where the three sacrifices form points of a perfect triangle. The final ritual requires willing participation, or the forced submission of the gatekeepers. The tear in reality pulsed, widening. Something began to reach through, a presence so alien that the mind rejected its true form, interpreting it as a mass of shifting darkness. Gomez gripped the soul anchor, suddenly less enthusiastic. "Wednesday. Perhaps that's enough information for one night." Wednesday didn't respond, her body now hovering inches above the floor, dark energy crackling around her. The thing reaching through the tear extended what might have been appendages toward her, drawn to the connection. "Now, Lurch!" Gomez shouted, activating the soul anchor. The device whirred to life, golden threads of energy shooting out to wrap around Wednesday's suspended form. Lurch moved with surprising speed for his size, breaking the circle with a sweep of a silver staff. The tear began to close, but not before a tendril of darkness lashed out, wrapping around Wednesday's wrist. Her eyes snapped open, solid black from edge to edge. "She belongs to us now," a voice that wasn't Wednesday's echoed through the room. "The gatekeeper will open the way." "I don't think so," came a new voice from the doorway. Harry Potter stood there, wand raised, eyes fixed on the scene before him. Without hesitation, he cast a spell Wednesday had never heard before, words in a language that sounded almost like Parseltongue. Silver blue light erupted from his wand, slicing through the dark tendril connected to Wednesday. The entity shrieked, a sound that made blood vessels burst in the eyes of a nearby portrait. The tears sealed shut with a thunderclap, and Wednesday collapsed to the floor. In the sudden silence, Gomez looked from his unconscious daughter to the newcomer. "Splendid timing," he declared, extending his hand. "You must be Potter. Excellent spell work, very decisive. Not many wizards would attempt a severance charm on an interdimensional entity." Harry lowered his wand cautiously, taking the offered hand. "Mr. Adams, I presume?" "Gomez Adams, at your service." He pumped Harry's hand enthusiastically. "That's my wife Morticia over there with the smelling salts, not that they'll help, but tradition is tradition, and this is Lurch." The towering butler groaned mournfully. "He says he's pleased to meet you," Gomez translated cheerfully. "Now, might I ask how you found our humble abode? We do value our privacy, especially from magical ministries and their agents." "I'm not here as an auror," Harry said, moving to where Wednesday lay. "The ministry's hunting both of us now. And as for finding you, let's just say your daughter's card had more than one enchantment on it." Morticia looked up from attending Wednesday, her dark eyes assessing Harry with unnerving precision. "The prophecy binds you to her. You felt her danger." "It wasn't a question." Harry nodded anyway. "I was halfway to another hiding spot when I felt something pulling me here instead." Wednesday stirred, her eyes fluttering open, back to normal now, dark but human. "Potter," she croaked. "Your timing is, surprisingly adequate." High praise from Wednesday, Gomez beamed. "She once told me my rescue from a collapsing catacomb was not entirely unwelcome." Harry helped Wednesday sit up. What were you doing? Getting answers. Her voice was hoarse but determined. The Void Walker is focusing its energy beneath London. The three ritual sites form points of a triangle. The murders are creating a foundation for the final ritual. Which is the sacrifice of the gatekeepers. Wednesday's eyes met his. Either we participate willingly in the ritual and control the outcome, or the Crimson Court will force our submission, turning us into vessels. Morticia helped her daughter to her feet. You need rest, Wednesday. The contact took much of your strength. There's no time. Wednesday swayed slightly but remained standing. The court will complete the triangle soon. We need to regroup, Harry interrupted firmly. You're in no condition to do anything right now, and I've got Aurors hunting me across 2 continents. A few hours of planning won't change anything. Gomez clapped Harry on the shoulder. Well said. Strategy before action. Come, you'll stay for dinner at least. Lurch makes an exceptional eye of newt stew on Tuesdays. The butler groaned affirmatively. Actually, Harry said cautiously, I was hoping for information more than food. You must know something about this Void Walker entity. Morticia's red lips curved in a slight smile. We Adamses have extensive knowledge of entities beyond conventional reality. The family library contains texts that would send your ministry into apoplectic fits. But first, sustenance. Gomez insisted. Can't battle interdimensional horrors on an empty stomach. And we simply must hear how you two met. Wednesday so rarely brings home friends, living ones, anyway. As they moved toward the dining room, Wednesday found herself walking beside Harry. You didn't have to come, she said quietly. The ritual was under control. Was it? Harry raised an eyebrow. Because from where I stood, it looked like you were about to become possessed by the exact entity we're trying to stop. A calculated risk. Next time, calculate better. His voice was firm but not unkind. The prophecy says neither of us can stand alone against it. I felt what was happening, felt you being pulled away. If we're going to stop this thing, we need to work together. Wednesday studied him thoughtfully. You're different from what I expected. Less self-righteous. More pragmatic. 7 years as an Auror changes your perspective, Harry said dryly. Turns out, the world isn't as black and white as they teach at Hogwarts. For the first time, Wednesday's lips curved in something close to a genuine smile. Perhaps we'll work well together after all, Potter. Harry, he corrected. If we're facing an apocalypse together, we might as well use first names. Harry, she tested the name, finding it didn't taste as conventional on her tongue as she'd expected. I suppose you can call me Wednesday. But only during world-ending crises. Deal. Dinner with the Addams family was an experience Harry would not soon forget. The long table in the formal dining room seated not only Gomez, Morticia, Wednesday, and himself, but also Wednesday's brother Pugsley, a cheerfully explosive young man, Grandmama, whose age was indeterminate but whose knowledge of poisons was encyclopedic, Uncle Fester, who demonstrated the ability to light a bulb in his mouth, and Thing, a disembodied hand that served bread rolls with surprising dexterity. The conversation flowed from casual discussion of medieval torture techniques to the finer points of explosive chemistry to the latest fashion in funeral attire. Through it all, Harry found himself oddly comfortable. After facing Voldemort and Death Eaters, a family that embraced the macabre seemed refreshingly honest. So, Gomez said, carving what Harry hoped was lamb, this prophecy of yours. Quite the predicament. Father has some experience with ancient prophecies, Wednesday explained. The Addams line has appeared in several over the centuries. Indeed. Gomez beamed. My great-great-grandfather was prophesied to bring darkness to the Highlands. Turned out he just accidentally blew up Scotland's largest candle factory. He chuckled at the memory. 200,000 beeswax candles, up in flames. They say the smoke blocked the sun for a week. Morticia gracefully steered the conversation back on track. The Void Walker is known to our family, though not by that name. We call it, the entity between. Our ancestors encountered it during the Black Plague years. What can you tell us about it? Harry asked. It exists in the space between dimensions, Morticia explained. Neither fully here nor there, always seeking entry. It requires anchors in our reality, living anchors. The gatekeepers, Wednesday said. Yes, dear. In previous cycles, it attempted to create its own anchors through possession. This time, it seems to be working through human agents, this Crimson Court. Grandmama cackled from her end of the table. Smart. Much easier to manipulate humans than to break through directly. We're such willing little puppets. The court believes the Void Walker will reshape reality to some purer form, Wednesday added. What they don't understand is that its concept of pure means returning everything to primal chaos. Harry absorbed this information while trying to ignore the fact that his soup occasionally blinked at him. How do we stop it? The prophecy suggests you must participate in the ritual, Morticia said. But control it rather than be controlled by it. That's not very specific, Harry noted. Gomez nodded enthusiastically. Prophecies rarely are. The real trick is figuring out the loopholes. Like my cousin Crimp, who was prophesied to die by his own hand. Kept thing locked in a box for 40 years before realizing the prophecy meant he'd accidentally poison himself with his own cooking. The ritual requires both gatekeepers to be present at the convergence point, Wednesday said, ignoring her father's tangent. Our combined power either contains the entity or channels it. And this convergence point is somewhere beneath London? Harry asked. At the nexus of the ritual triangle, Wednesday confirmed. Based on the 2 murder sites we know about, and assuming the geometric precision they've maintained so far, the 3rd site should be somewhere in the East End. And the final convergence point would be somewhere near the Tower of London, if my calculations are correct. Wednesday pushed her barely touched food aside. We need to prevent the 3rd ritual killing. Without it, the triangle remains incomplete. Harry considered their options. The Ministry's watching both of us now. Crowley's convinced we're involved in the killings, not trying to stop them. Then we need allies who can move freely, Wednesday said. People the Ministry isn't watching. I have a few in mind, Harry nodded. But first, we need a secure base of operations. Somewhere neither the Ministry nor the Crimson Court would think to look for us. Gomez snapped his fingers. The family vacation home. Our delightful little retreat near the Bermuda Triangle. Sits right on a convergence of magical ley lines, excellent for interdimensional research, terrible for television reception. It's also unplottable, Morticia added. And features several emergency escape dimensions, should things go awry. Wednesday nodded slowly. It could work. Uncle Fester could arrange transportation. The bald man grinned, electricity literally sparking between his teeth. I know just the smuggler. Owes me a favor after I helped him regrow that 3rd arm. Before we go anywhere, Harry interjected, I need to contact some people. We'll need information and resources the Aurors can't trace. Wednesday pushed back from the table. The library has secure communication methods. This way. As they left the dining room, Morticia and Gomez exchanged knowing glances. Reminds me of us at that age, Gomez whispered, kissing his wife's hand. Prophecies, interdimensional entities, the fate of reality hanging in the balance. Pure romance, Morticia agreed with a smile. The Addams family library was unlike any Harry had ever seen, 3 stories of towering bookshelves containing texts that would have given the Department of Mysteries apoplexy. Ancient grimoires in languages long dead, scrolls sealed with blood warts, and tomes bound in materials he decided not to examine too closely. Wednesday led him to a circular table at the center of the room, where a large mirror in an ornate silver frame stood. Blood mirror, she explained, removing a small silver knife from a drawer. Undetectable, untraceable. The Ministry's monitoring spells can't track it because it doesn't use conventional magic. How does it work? Harry asked, watching as she precisely cut her palm. Sympathetic connection. Wednesday pressed her bleeding hand to the mirror's surface. Blood calls to blood. Think of the person you wish to contact, and if you've exchanged blood, even accidentally, the connection forms. I've never exchanged blood with Ron or Hermione, Harry pointed out. After 7 years of adventures. Wednesday raised an eyebrow. Never bled from the same battle. Never mixed blood through shared wounds or healing spells. Harry thought back. I suppose we have. Then it will work. She stepped back, gesturing to the mirror. Your turn. Harry hesitated only briefly before cutting his palm and pressing it to the cold surface. He thought of Ron and Hermione, focusing on their faces, the years of shared danger and friendship. The mirror's surface rippled like water, darkness giving way to an image, Hermione and Ron in what appeared to be the secure room at the back of Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. Harry. Hermione gasped, leaning closer to whatever was showing his image on their end. Where are you? Are you all right? I'm fine, he assured her. Somewhere safe. What's happening there? Bloody chaos, Ron replied. Crowley's issued a formal detention order for both you and Wednesday Addams. He's claiming you're involved in dark magic rituals, maybe even behind the murders. Hermione's expression was grave. It's worse than that. He's convened a special committee with emergency powers. They're using the Emergency Magical Security Act of 2002. That bad? Harry had helped draft that legislation after the war, meant for true magical catastrophes, not witch hunts against Aurors. He's convinced the Wisingamot that an interdimensional incursion is imminent, Hermione explained. He's not wrong about that part, but he's blaming you instead of looking for the real culprits. The Crimson Court, Harry nodded. We've learned more about them. They're planning a third ritual killing to complete some kind of magical triangle beneath London. Where? Ron asked immediately. We're not sure yet, but somewhere in the East End based on the pattern. I'll alert trusted Aurors to increase patrols there, Ron said. Without mentioning you. Be careful, Harry warned. Crowley has people everywhere. He knew about me meeting Wednesday before I'd even filed a report. He has help, a new voice said, and Luna Lovegood's face appeared beside Hermione's. Hello, Harry. You've got quite a Raxpert infestation around you. Interdimensional entities attract them, you know. Despite everything, Harry smiled. Good to see you, Luna. What do you mean, Crowley has help? I've been tracking unusual creature activity for the Quibbler, Luna explained in her dreamy voice. Migration patterns changing, dimensional thinning allowing glimpses of beings that shouldn't be here. I brought my findings to the Ministry last week. Let me guess, Crowley took the information but twisted it to fit his narrative, Harry said. Luna nodded. He was particularly interested in my research on gatekeepers, magical individuals who naturally attract interdimensional energies. I mentioned that prophesied individuals often become gatekeepers without realizing it. Wednesday leaned into view. He's using your research to build a case against us. Oh, hello, Luna said pleasantly, not at all surprised by Wednesday's appearance. You must be the other gatekeeper. Your aura has the same interdimensional resonance as Harry's. Hermione looked exasperated. Luna's been helping us understand what's happening. She's the closest thing Britain has to an expert on interdimensional entities. The Department of Mysteries has more information, Luna added, but they're being unusually secretive, even for them. Something about this situation has them scared. With good reason, Wednesday said. The Void Walker isn't just any entity. It's a primordial force that existed before our dimension stabilized. Its return would remake reality according to older, chaotic principles. Basically, the end of everything as we know it, Ron translated. We need to stop the third ritual, Harry said. And we need information on the final convergence point, where the three sites form a perfect triangle. Hermione was already taking notes. I can access Ministry archives remotely to check for magical anomalies in the East End. And I'll map the geometric pattern based on the first two murder sites. We also need to know more about the ritual itself, Wednesday added. The specific method for controlling the entity rather than being controlled by it. The Department of Mysteries might have that information, Luna mused. I could ask my father to create a distraction at the Prophet's offices while I slip in to see my contact there. Too dangerous, Harry objected. Crowley's watching everyone connected to me. Actually, Ron interjected, that might work in our favor. While they're watching the obvious suspects, we could have someone else do the information gathering. Who? Hermione asked. Ron grinned. How about the last person anyone would suspect of helping Harry Potter with ancient dark rituals? I still can't believe I agreed to this, Draco Malfoy muttered, his pale face illuminated by the soft glow of the Department of Mysteries archives. Hush, Luna whispered beside him, her wand casting just enough light to read the ancient texts they'd borrowed from the secured stacks. The unspeakables do random patrols. If we're caught, my reputation will finally be completely destroyed, Draco complained, though he continued carefully turning pages in the ancient tome before him. From Death Eater to Potter's errand boy. My father would have a stroke. Your father would be proud you're helping prevent the collapse of dimensional reality, Luna replied serenely. Well, perhaps not proud. Relieved, at least. Draco snorted but didn't argue. After the war, he'd worked hard to rebuild his life and reputation. Now, as a liaison between Gringotts and the Ministry's financial department, he maintained a careful neutrality in wizarding politics. Which made him the perfect person to access restricted information without raising immediate suspicion. Here, he said suddenly, pointing to a diagram in the book. This matches the description Potter gave us. Luna leaned closer. The page showed an intricate diagram of a triangle with elaborate symbols at each point, and a central convergence mark. Text in an ancient language surrounded the image. The triad of dimensional thinning, Luna translated slowly. A ritual requiring 3 sacrifices at precise geometric points, creating a focused weakness in reality's fabric. Charming, Draco drawled. And this helps us how? Because it also describes the counter-ritual. Luna traced the text with her finger. The gatekeepers must be present at the convergence point during the alignment, but instead of allowing the entity passage, they can create a seal. What kind of seal? A living one. They bind themselves to the convergence point, using their connection to the entity to redirect its energy back into strengthening the dimensional barriers. Draco frowned. That sounds suspiciously like a sacrifice. Not necessarily death, Luna clarified. But a binding of their energies, yes. The text suggests the nature of the binding depends on the relationship between the gatekeepers. Relationship? Draco looked skeptical. Potter and the Addams girl barely know each other. The prophecy connected them before they ever met, Luna reminded him. Their energies are already entangled. The ritual would simply formalize that connection. She carefully photographed the pages with a specialized camera that worked despite the magical protections. We should go, Draco said, checking his enchanted watch. Crowley's meeting ends in 10 minutes. He'll return to his office 2 floors above us. They carefully replaced the books and slipped from the archives, navigating the labyrinthine corridors of the Department of Mysteries. As they approached the exit, voices echoed from around a corner. Still don't understand why you need access to these particular artifacts, a man was saying, his tone defensive. The minister has authorized it, came the unmistakable voice of Erasmus Crowley. The threat assessment requires all resources. Luna pulled Draco into a shadowy alcove as the voices drew nearer. Even so, Mr. Crowley, these items are dangerous. The veil has been sealed for good reason, and the chronoturner, I'm well aware of the risks, unspeakable Barrett. I've been authorized to use whatever means necessary to contain the interdimensional threat. The two men passed so close that Luna and Draco could see Crowley's severe profile. He carried a sealed case marked with warning symbols. Was that what I think it was? Draco whispered once they were gone. Luna's normally dreamy expression had sharpened into concern. He's taken something from the time room. And he mentioned the veil. The veil of death. The one in the death chamber. Luna nodded. We need to tell Harry immediately. Whatever Crowley's planning, it's more than just capturing them. Wednesday watched Harry pace the library, his expression darkening as Luna and Draco reported their findings through the blood mirror. A chronoturner isn't a standard time turner, Luna explained. It doesn't just move the user through time, it creates localized temporal distortions. The department developed it after the war but deemed it too dangerous to use. And combined with the veil. Draco added grimly. He could create a permanent banishing, Wednesday finished, understanding immediately. Not just stopping us, erasing us from the timeline completely. Harry stopped pacing. Crowley's planning to use us as scapegoats. He'll claim we were attempting the ritual, then use these artifacts to remove us entirely. While allowing him to take credit for stopping the interdimensional threat, Draco noted. Politically brilliant, if homicidally unethical. We need to move quickly, Wednesday said. The third ritual could happen any night now. Once the triangle is complete, the convergence point activates. Luna's voice came softly through the mirror. We'll continue gathering information. Draco has access to the Ministry's security protocols, he can monitor for unusual activity in the East End. And I'm meeting with an informant tomorrow, Draco added. Someone who claims to have inside information on the Crimson Court. Be careful, Harry warned. The court has infiltrated multiple levels of magical government, according to the Adams's intelligence. After ending the communication, Harry turned to Wednesday. We can't stay here much longer. If Crowley's this desperate, he might try tracking us through less conventional means. Uncle Fester has arranged transportation to the vacation house, she confirmed. We leave at dawn. But first, we need supplies. What kind of supplies? Wednesday's expression remained neutral, but something in her eyes suggested the question amused her. The kind your ministry pretends don't exist. Come with me. She led him deeper into the library, past rows of conventional books to a heavy iron door bearing symbols that made Harry's eyes water when he looked directly at them. Wednesday pressed her hand to the center, whispering words that seemed to bend around Harry's ears rather than travel through them. The door swung open to reveal a chamber that defied physics, larger than the entire house should have allowed, with a domed ceiling that displayed not plaster but what appeared to be the actual night sky. Welcome to the Adams Arcanum, Wednesday said, stepping inside. My family has collected forbidden knowledge for 16 generations. Harry followed, momentarily speechless. The circular room contained artifacts and books that would have sent any ministry official into conniptions. Shelves spiraled upward along the walls, containing objects that pulsed with power. At the center stood a large workbable covered with ingredients even Snape would have hesitated to handle. We'll need protective measures, Wednesday explained, moving to a cabinet fashioned from bone. The closer we get to the alignment, the stronger the Void Walker's influence becomes. She began selecting items, amulets of strange metal, vials of swirling substances, small pouches of herbs that smelled of lightning and deep earth. These will help shield our minds from its influence, she said, handing Harry an amulet. And these, she selected 2 slender daggers with obsidian blades, will allow us to channel its energy without being consumed by it. Harry examined the blade she gave him. Symbols etched into the handle matched those from the temple. This is blood magic, he said, not accusingly but matter-of-factly. Most effective magic is, Wednesday replied. Your ministry categorizes magic as dark or light, based on arbitrary distinctions. The oldest magics recognize no such division. Harry thought of the spell he'd used to sever the Void Walker's connection to Wednesday earlier, a spell Snape had created, neither wholly dark nor light but existing in that gray area that had kept him alive during 7 years as an Auror. "I don't disagree," he said finally. "But these methods have risks." "Every magic has risks, Harry." It was the first time she'd used his first name naturally. "The question is whether the risk is worth the outcome." As she continued gathering supplies, Harry wandered the chamber, drawn to a pedestal displaying an ancient book bound in what appeared to be human skin. The title, written in faded gold, read, "Prophecies of the End Times." "Your family has been preparing for this," he realized, looking around with new understanding. "The Adamses have known about the Void Walker for generations. We've known about many entities that exist beyond conventional reality," Wednesday confirmed. "My ancestors recognized patterns in prophecies across different cultures and times. The Void Walker is just one of several forces that periodically test the boundaries of our dimension. And your family's response was to collect knowledge about them, not alert magical authorities." Wednesday paused in her work. Would they have listened? Or would they have done exactly what they're doing now, panic, then try to control or destroy what they don't understand? Harry couldn't argue with that assessment. He'd seen the Ministry's reaction to threats too many times. Besides, Wednesday continued, a ghost of a smile touching her lips, the Addams family has always found beauty in what others fear. We don't run from darkness, we study it. Sometimes we even invite it to dinner. Despite everything, Harry laughed. Your family is peculiar, macabre, disturbing, she supplied. Honest, he finished. Refreshingly so. Something shifted in Wednesday's expression, a subtle softening around her eyes. Most people don't see it that way. I'm not most people. No, she agreed quietly. You're not. The moment stretched between them, an unexpected connection forming through shared understanding. Then Wednesday turned back to her work, efficient as always. We should rest before the journey, she said, packing the selected items into a black leather bag. Tomorrow will be challenging. Harry nodded, following her from the Arcanum. As the iron door sealed behind them, he found himself wondering about the prophecy's wording, that divided, they would become vessels, but united they could command the threshold. The nature of that unity remained to be seen. Dawn found them on an isolated stretch of New Jersey coastline, where Uncle Fester waited with a man who could only be described as suspiciously nondescript, so average in appearance that it had to be deliberately cultivated. This is Mr. Smith, Fester introduced with a wink so obvious it defeated the purpose of the alias. He'll get you to the vacation house without leaving any magical trace. Pleasure, Mr. Smith said in an accent that seemed to shift mid-word. Got all your things? Once we're in the transport, there's no coming back for forgotten toothbrushes or sacrificial daggers. They had packed light, one bag each containing essential clothing and the magical supplies from the Arcanum. Wednesday carried an additional case that Harry suspected contained darker implements than he wanted to know about. We're ready, she confirmed. Mr. Smith led them down the beach to what appeared to be an ordinary rowboat pulled up on the sand. All aboard. Mind the teeth. Teeth? Harry questioned, then noticed the gunnels were lined with what appeared to be actual jaws that snapped lazily in the morning air. Security feature, Smith explained cheerfully. They only bite unauthorized passengers. Probably. Once they were seated, carefully avoiding the animate dental work, Smith tapped the bow with a crooked wand. The boat shuddered, then began to sink into the sand as if the beach were liquid. First time in a phase shifter? Smith asked, noting Harry's tense posture. Just normal interdimensional travel jitters. Happens to everyone. Well, everyone who survives. The boat submerged completely, sand flowing over their heads, except it wasn't sand anymore but something between liquid and gas, shimmering with colors that shouldn't exist. Harry felt pressure building in his ears, a sensation of moving very fast while sitting perfectly still. We're traveling between, Wednesday explained, seemingly unaffected by the disorienting journey. Not quite in our dimension, not quite outside it. The in-between spaces are how my family has avoided detection for centuries. Adams is. Smith agreed enthusiastically. Best customers for interdimensional smuggling. Never ask for refunds when they arrive missing non-essential body parts. Harry decided not to ask for clarification on what constituted non-essential. The journey lasted either minutes or hours, time seemed meaningless in this in-between space. Eventually, the shimmering not-quite matter around them began to thin, revealing glimpses of blue sky and dark water. Coming up on the Bermuda Triangle, Smith announced. Dimensional barriers naturally thin here, makes for easier passage and occasional unfortunate disappearances of mundane aircraft. Nothing to worry about. The boat surfaced with a splash, now floating on actual water. Ahead, a small island rose from the sea, dominated by a structure that somehow managed to look both like a Victorian mansion and a Gothic cathedral having an architectural argument. The Adams vacation home, Wednesday said, following Harry's gaze. Built on a convergence of 7 ley lines. My great-great-grandfather chose the location after his third wife was temporarily transformed into a sea creature during their honeymoon. Romantic, Harry commented dryly. She thought so. They renewed their vows underwater. The sharks served as witnesses. The boat, thankfully no longer trying to bite them, docked at a weathered pier. Smith helped them unload their bags. Return journeys already arranged, he told them. Just drop this into the sea when you're ready to leave. He handed Wednesday what appeared to be a shrunken human skull carved from coral. 3-day lead time requested, unless you fancy swimming back. After Smith departed, the boat sinking beneath the waves with him still cheerfully waving, they approached the house. Up close, it was even more imposing, with gargoyles that seemed to track their movement and windows that reflected nothing that was actually in front of them. Home sweet home, Wednesday said. At least until the potential apocalypse. Inside, the house was exactly what Harry might have expected from an Adams vacation property, ornate, Gothic, filled with disturbing artwork and furniture that looked designed for discomfort. Oddly, though, it felt welcoming in its honesty. No pretense, no hiding its nature behind respectable facades. We should establish a base of operations, Wednesday suggested, leading him to what appeared to be a library/observatory combination. Large windows overlooked the sea, while star charts covered one wall and bookshelves lined the others. A massive table dominated the center, perfect for spreading out maps and notes. I'll contact Ron and Hermione, Harry said, unpacking the communication mirror. See if they've made progress locating the potential third ritual site. I'll prepare the protective wards, Wednesday nodded. The dimensional barriers are naturally thinner here, useful for our research, but potentially dangerous if the Void Walker senses our presence. As they settled into their tasks, Harry found himself watching Wednesday work. Her methodical precision, the calm certainty in her movements, the depth of knowledge she called upon without hesitation, all reminded him that beneath her macabre exterior lay a formidable intellect. The prophecy had linked them, yes, but he was beginning to think they might have found common ground regardless. Both shaped by expectations not of their choosing, both familiar with darkness others feared to acknowledge, both determined to forge their own path despite prophecy's weight. The mirror connection formed, revealing Ron's concerned face. About time, his friend exclaimed. We've got news, and none of it good. What's happened? Harry asked, Wednesday joining him at the mirror. The third ritual site, Ron said grimly. We think we've identified it, an abandoned underground station in Whitechapel. Magical sensors detected unusual energy buildup there last night. Whitechapel, Wednesday murmured. Perfect geometric alignment with the previous sites. That's not all, Ron continued. Draco met his informant, a woman claiming to be a former member of the Crimson Court. She says the final ritual is scheduled for tomorrow night. Tomorrow? Harry's stomach dropped. That's too soon. The celestial alignment isn't for another 2 weeks. According to this woman, Lilith something, the ritual tomorrow prepares the convergence point for the alignment. Once all 3 points are activated, they need time to build power. Lilith Thornheart, Wednesday said suddenly. Described her. Dark hair with a white streak. Scar across her left cheekbone. Ron looked surprised. Yeah, that's her. You know her. She was a researcher at Miskatonic University when I studied there. Specializing in interdimensional entities and their influence on human consciousness. Wednesday's expression darkened. She was dismissed after students in her research group started disappearing. You think she's still with the court? Feeding Draco false information? Harry asked. Or incomplete information? Wednesday considered. We need to speak with her directly. That might be difficult, Ron said grimly. She's disappeared. Draco said she was spooked during their meeting, claimed someone was following her. She gave him a package with information, then vanished. The package? Harry pressed. Hermione's analyzing it now. It contains texts about the ritual and maps of the convergence point. Ron glanced over his shoulder. She's on her way, wait, here she is. Hermione's face appeared beside Ron's, looking exhausted but determined. Harry, the information checks out. The convergence point is directly beneath the Tower of London, in what appears to be a chamber older than the tower itself. The Crimson Court has been planning this for years, she continued. According to these documents, they've been gradually weakening the dimensional barriers through smaller rituals, preparing for this moment. And Crowley? Harry asked. Any movement from him? He's mobilizing a special task force, Hermione said. Officially to investigate the magical disturbances, but we've heard he has orders to capture or eliminate you both on sight. Charming, Wednesday commented. There's more, Hermione's voice lowered. Luna's contact in the Department of Mysteries revealed something about the Void Walker. It's been here before, not just attempting to cross over, but actually manifesting. When? Harry asked. During the Black Death. The plague wasn't just a disease, it was a symptom of reality fracturing as the entity partially emerged. It was banished by a pair of gatekeepers then too, ancestors of both of you, if the records are correct. Wednesday nodded slightly. That aligns with my family's histories. An Adams was involved in a great banishing during that period. And on the Potter side? Harry asked, surprised. Not Potter directly, Hermione clarified. But yes, one of your ancestral lines. The prophecy runs in bloodlines, apparently. History repeating itself, Wednesday murmured. We need to stop the third ritual, Harry said decisively. If we can prevent them from completing the triangle, it may not be that simple, Hermione interrupted. According to these texts, the court has contingency plans. If they can't complete the ritual themselves, they'll try to force you two to do it under their control. How? Wednesday asked sharply. Blood compulsion, Hermione said grimly. They've been collecting genetic material from both of you, surveillance photos show them retrieving items you've touched, places where you might have left hair or skin cells. That's why they haven't tried to capture us directly, Harry realized. They don't need us physically present for the third ritual, just our blood or DNA. Which means, Wednesday concluded, the ritual is happening whether we intervene or not. Our only option is to ensure we control the outcome at the convergence point. A heavy silence fell as the implications sank in. What do we do? Ron finally asked. Harry and Wednesday exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. We prepare, Harry said. If we can't stop the ritual, we need to be ready for the convergence. That means understanding exactly how to control the entity rather than being controlled by it. The documents mention a bonding ritual, Hermione said carefully. Something that would strengthen your connection as gatekeepers, making it harder for the court to manipulate you separately. What kind of bonding ritual? Harry asked, noting how Wednesday had gone very still beside him. It's intimate, Hermione said diplomatically. A magical merging of energies that would create a shared consciousness, not permanently, but enough to coordinate your actions during the final confrontation. I know this ritual, Wednesday said quietly. It's in my family's grimoire. Effective, but dangerous. If performed incorrectly, the participants can lose their individual identities entirely. Is there an alternative? Harry asked. None that would be strong enough to resist the Void Walker's influence, Wednesday replied. The entity will try to turn us against each other, divide and conquer. This ritual would make that nearly impossible. Another weighted silence fell. We'll research the ritual tonight, Harry finally said. Make the decision once we understand the full implications. Be careful, Hermione urged. Both of you. We'll continue monitoring the situation here and warn you if Crowley makes a move. After ending the communication, Harry turned to Wednesday. This bonding ritual, just how intimate are we talking? Not what you're thinking, she said, the ghost of a smile touching her lips. Though that is one variation. The version in my family's grimoire requires shared blood, shared breath, and shared vision, essentially creating temporary pathways between our magical cores. Temporary? Mostly. Wednesday's dark eyes met his. Some effects may linger. We would retain a sense of each other's presence, emotions, perhaps even thoughts, depending on the strength of the connection formed. Harry ran a hand through his already messy hair. And if we don't do it? Then we face the Void Walker as individuals, each vulnerable to its influence. The prophecy states clearly, divided we become vessels. Not much of a choice. There rarely is, with prophecies. Wednesday began unpacking the grimoire from her bag. We have until tomorrow night to decide and prepare. I suggest we start by understanding exactly what we'd be getting ourselves into. As they settled into research, the weight of their situation pressed down on Harry. Another prophecy, another predetermined path. Yet somehow, having Wednesday beside him made it feel less like fate forcing his hand and more like a choice, difficult, dangerous, but still his own. Night fell over the strange island, stars emerging in unfamiliar patterns. After hours of research, Harry and Wednesday had moved to the house's observation tower, a circular room with glass walls that offered a panoramic view of the turbulent sea surrounding them. Maps and notes covered the floor between them, information from Hermione, pages from Wednesday's family grimoire, and Harry's own calculations regarding magical defenses they might encounter. At the center lay the obsidian daggers Wednesday had brought from the Arcanum. The bonding ritual requires perfect timing, Wednesday explained, indicating a star chart. The dimensional barriers naturally thin at midnight. That's when our connection to the Void Walker is strongest, and when the ritual would be most effective. And most dangerous, Harry added, studying the grimoire's warnings about potential side effects, personality blending, magical transference, in extreme cases complete psychic merging. Yes. Wednesday didn't sugarcoat it. We would be vulnerable during the process. If something went wrong, if the Void Walker sensed what we were doing and interfered, it could possess us both simultaneously, Harry finished. Giving it exactly what it wants. Wednesday nodded. Which is why we need protections. She indicated the complex array of items she'd arranged around the room, symbols drawn in various substances, candles made of unusual wax, small artifacts placed at precise intervals. This seems like an awful lot of risk, Harry noted, for a temporary advantage. Is it temporary? Wednesday asked quietly. The prophecy doesn't end with banishing the Void Walker this time. It's a cycle, Harry. It will return during the next alignment, and the next after that. And what? We just keep fighting it forever. Or we find a permanent solution. Her dark eyes reflected the starlight. Something the previous gatekeepers never managed. Harry sat back, considering. You think this bonding, this connection between us, might help with that? I think knowledge is cumulative, she replied. Each pair of gatekeepers learned something. Perhaps together, we can see what they couldn't individually. It made a strange kind of sense. Harry had spent his life fighting dark forces, always reacting, rarely getting ahead of them. The thought of breaking a cycle rather than just surviving it was appealing. "There's something else," Wednesday added, almost hesitantly. "I've been having dreams, different from the ones we shared. Visions of previous gatekeepers. They're trying to communicate something." "What?" "That's just it, I can only get fragments. But I believe the ritual might clarify these visions, allow us to access their knowledge directly." Harry studied her face, realizing how much it had opened to him in the short time they'd known each other. The cold, expressionless mask she presented to the world had softened, revealing intelligence, determination, and something else, a vulnerability she likely showed to very few. "All right," he said finally. "We do the ritual. Tonight." Wednesday looked momentarily surprised by his decisiveness. "You understand the risks." "Better than most," Harry said wryly. "I've had part of Voldemort's soul in my head, Wednesday. A temporary psychic connection with you can't possibly be worse than that." For the first time, he saw her genuinely smile, a small, subtle thing that nevertheless transformed her face. "You say the sweetest things, Harry Potter." They spent the next hour preparing. Wednesday carefully arranged and rearranged the protective items, muttering incantations that made the air vibrate strangely. Harry strengthened the house's magical defenses, adding layers of protection against both physical intrusion and magical detection. As midnight approached, they sat cross-legged on the floor facing each other, the obsidian daggers between them. "Once we begin, we can't stop until it's complete," Wednesday warned. "No matter what happens, no matter what we see or feel." Harry nodded, his expression determined. "I'm ready." Wednesday lifted her dagger. "Blood first." They each cut their palms, pressing the wounds together. The contact sent a shock through Harry's system, not painful, but intense, like touching a live wire. Wednesday began to speak in that same ancient language, her voice taking on a resonant quality that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The room darkened despite the starlight, shadows gathering around them. The blood between their palms began to glow with an inner light, tendrils of energy snaking up their arms. "Breath now," Wednesday instructed, her face inches from his. Harry leaned forward until their foreheads touched, their breath mingling. The sensation intensified, he could feel her heartbeat as if it were his own, her thoughts brushing against the edges of his consciousness. "The final step," she whispered. "Vision." Their eyes locked, dark meeting green. The world fell away. Harry found himself floating in darkness, but not alone. Wednesday's presence surrounded him, her consciousness intertwined with his. Images flashed between them, memories, fears, hopes, all laid bare. He saw Wednesday as a child, already serious, already different, finding solace in ancient texts while other children played. He felt her isolation, her pride in her family's heritage, her determination to forge her own path. And he knew she was seeing him just as clearly, the cupboard under the stairs, the desperate need for belonging, the weight of being the chosen one. No secrets, no hiding. Then the visions shifted, showing figures from the past, gatekeepers from previous cycles. A medieval knight and a veiled woman. A Viking warrior and a Roman priestess. A plague doctor and a village witch. Each pair facing the same entity, each finding a temporary solution, each knowing it would return. "They're showing us something," Wednesday's voice echoed in his mind. "Look closer." Harry focused, and the visions clarified. Each pair of gatekeepers had performed the same ritual they were doing now, but each had stopped at containment, creating a seal that would last only until the next alignment. They were afraid, he realized. Afraid to go further, to actually confront the entity directly. Because confronting it means risking becoming it, Wednesday's thoughts replied. Opening themselves fully to its influence. The vision shifted again, showing the convergence point beneath the Tower of London, an ancient chamber where ley lines intersected, where reality itself grew thin. They saw the Crimson Court preparing, Madame Scarlet directing her followers in rituals that would weaken the barriers further. And beyond, watching from the space between dimensions, the Void Walker itself, a presence so alien that their minds could only interpret it as shifting darkness, a void that somehow thought and planned. A sudden intrusion, the entity sensing them, turning its attention to their bonding ritual. The darkness thickened, pressing against their shared consciousness, seeking entry. Hold firm, Wednesday's presence steadied him. This is why we need the connection. To resist this influence together. Harry focused on their joined hands, their shared breath, their linked vision. The entity pushed harder, showing them visions of power beyond imagining, knowledge beyond human comprehension. For a moment, Harry felt Wednesday's resolve waver, her natural curiosity, her family's affinity for darkness making the entity's offer tempting. He tightened his grip on her hands, sending his own determination through their connection. Not like this, he thought to her. Not as vessels. Her focus returned, stronger than before. Together, they pushed back against the entity's influence. The darkness receded, though Harry sensed it was merely retreating, not defeated. Slowly, the physical world reformed around them. They were still sitting in the observation tower, hands clasped, foreheads touching, but changed. Harry could feel Wednesday's presence in his mind, a subtle awareness of her emotions and thoughts. Not complete access, but a connection that hadn't existed before. It worked, she said softly, pulling back slightly to look at him. Her eyes widened. Your scar. Harry reached up to touch his lightning bolt scar, finding it warm beneath his fingers. What about it? It's glowing, Wednesday said, fascinated. And changing. She conjured a mirror, holding it up for him to see. His scar still had the familiar lightning shape, but now thin lines extended from it in an intricate pattern reminiscent of the symbols from the temple. Yours too, he told her, reaching out to trace a pattern that had appeared on her forehead, a crescent shape with radiating lines. The mark of the gatekeepers, she murmured. The ritual completed the connection the prophecy began. Harry could feel her mixture of excitement and apprehension through their new bond. Will these fade? I don't know, she admitted. The grimoire doesn't mention physical manifestations like this. Before they could discuss it further, a thunderous crash shook the house. Alarms from Harry's defensive wards blared in warning. We're under attack, he said, jumping to his feet, wand ready. Wednesday moved to the window, looking down at the beach below. Figures in crimson robes were advancing toward the house, led by a tall woman whose presence commanded attention even from a distance. The Crimson Court, Wednesday said, her voice deadly calm. And Madame Scarlet herself. They must have tracked us through the ritual's energy signature. How many? At least 20. She turned to him, her expression determined. The ritual worked, Harry. I can feel your thoughts, your magic. We can fight them together. Harry nodded, feeling the same connection. Through their bond, he could sense her magical abilities, different from his own but complementary. Where his magic was direct, forceful, hers was subtle, manipulative. Together, they created something new. Then let's show them what gatekeepers can do, he said, heading for the stairs. Before they interrupt our vacation. Wednesday's smile was sharp as a blade as she followed. I've always enjoyed unexpected guests. They make such excellent practice targets. As they descended to meet the attack, Harry felt something he hadn't experienced since Voldemort's defeat, the absolute certainty that he wasn't facing darkness alone. Whatever came next, whatever the prophecy demanded of them, they would face it together. The Crimson Court was about to learn what that meant. Madame Scarlet raised her hand, halting her followers at the edge of the property. The Adams' vacation home loomed before them, dark and imposing against the night sky. Power radiated from it in waves that even the least sensitive of her acolytes could feel. They've completed a bonding ritual, she observed, satisfaction in her voice. Excellent. It makes them stronger against direct control, but ultimately more valuable as vessels. Beside her, a hooded figure spoke through their mask. "The Void Walker is aware. It directed us here." "Of course it did." Madame Scarlet's smile was cold. "Our master doesn't want its gatekeepers damaged, just controlled." She gestured to her followers. "Containment formation. Remember, we need them alive and relatively intact." The court members spread out, taking positions around the property. They began a synchronized chant, raising wands and ritual implements that glowed with sickly light. The house's defenses responded immediately, wards flaring visible in the night air, protective symbols igniting along the perimeter. The clash of energies created a spectacular display, like lightning striking in slow motion. Madame Scarlet remained unmoved, watching the conflict with calculating eyes. When the front door of the house burst open, revealing Harry and Wednesday side by side, she smiled. "The gatekeepers themselves," she called out. "How kind of you to save us the trouble of hunting you down." "Lillian Scarlet," Wednesday replied coldly. "Still playing with forces you don't understand." The woman's composure flickered briefly at the use of her full name. "Wednesday Adams. Still pretending your family's parlor tricks qualify as real magic." Harry stepped forward, wand raised. "Call off your people and leave. Last warning." Madame Scarlet laughed, the sound unnaturally amplified. "Or what? You'll arrest me? You're a fugitive, or a Potter. Wanted for the very crimes we're committing." "I wasn't planning to arrest you," Harry said, his voice deadly calm. "Just to stop you." He struck without further warning, a blasting spell that should have thrown Madame Scarlet back. Instead, her robes rippled, absorbing the magic. She countered with a gesture that sent a wave of force toward them. Wednesday moved in perfect sync with Harry, their newly formed bond allowing them to coordinate without words. She deflected the attack while he launched another, their magic interweaving in patterns neither could have created alone. The Crimson Court members attacked from all sides, but the combination of Harry's aura training and Wednesday's unconventional magical knowledge proved formidable. They moved as one entity, covering each other's weaknesses, amplifying each other's strengths. Through their bond, Harry could access Wednesday's knowledge of obscure protective spells, while she drew on his combat experience. Fire and shadow danced around them as they fought their way through the court's front line. "The marks," Madame Scarlet called to her followers, pointing to the glowing symbols on Harry and Wednesday's foreheads. "Focus on disrupting them." 3 cultists changed their attack pattern, sending targeted curses at Harry's scar. The pain was immediate and severe, not just physical but magical, as if they were trying to sever his connection to Wednesday. Through their bond, he felt her experience the same pain. They staggered, momentarily vulnerable. "Harry." Wednesday grabbed his arm, her touch anchoring him. Through their connection, she sent a surge of energy that helped him block the attack. "We can't fight them all," he said, deflecting another curse. "They're trying to wear us down." Wednesday nodded, understanding his thoughts before he fully formed them. "The boathouse. If we can reach it," they changed tactics, focusing on clearing a path toward the small structure at the end of the pier. Harry created a massive shield charm while Wednesday sent a wave of conjured shadow creatures to distract their attackers. "Stop them." Madame Scarlet commanded, her composure slipping as she realized their intention. "They mustn't escape." Harry and Wednesday ran, synchronizing their movements perfectly through their bond. Court members pursued, hurling curses that splashed against their combined defenses. When 3 cultists appeared directly in their path, they reacted as one, Harry going low with a sweeping hex that knocked their opponents off their feet, Wednesday following with binding spells that wrapped them in constricting shadows. They reached the boathouse just as Madame Scarlet unleashed a powerful curse that shattered their shield. The impact threw them forward, through the doorway and onto the rough wooden floor. "The transport activator," Wednesday gasped, pulling herself up. "In my pocket." Harry reached for it as the door burst open behind them. Madame Scarlet stood framed in the entrance, power crackling around her. The Void Walker has waited centuries for the perfect gatekeepers, she said, advancing slowly. Strong enough to channel its essence, compatible enough to work in tandem. You've proven yourselves ideal. We're not interested in the position, Harry replied, buying time as Wednesday prepared the Coral Skull transport. It's not a choice, Mr. Potter. It's prophecy. Destiny. Madame Scarlet's smile was almost pitying. The bonding ritual you performed simply makes you more valuable. The stronger your connection, the more power you'll channel for our master. Your master, Wednesday said coldly, is using you. What comes through won't create the world you imagine, it will unmake reality itself. Reality needs unmaking, Scarlet replied with sudden passion. This ordered, regulated existence, magic bound by rules and limitations, power controlled by institutions. The Void Walker will return us to the primal state, where true power flows freely. You're insane, Harry said. I'm visionary, she corrected. As are you both, whether you accept it yet or not. You felt the entity's presence. You've glimpsed what it offers. To Harry's alarm, he felt something in Wednesday respond to those words, not agreement, but recognition. Through their bond, he sensed her acknowledgement that yes, she had been tempted by the knowledge the Void Walker offered. Ready, Wednesday whispered to him mentally, the skull activator prepared. You won't escape, Madame Scarlet said, raising her wand. The Crimson Court has agents everywhere. We've spent years preparing. Tomorrow night, the triangle will be complete, and 3 days later, during the alignment, our master will come through, with or without your cooperation. We'll see about that, Harry replied, grabbing Wednesday's hand as she threw the skull into the water beneath them. The floor disappeared, reality shifting around them as the emergency transport activated. The last thing they saw was Madame Scarlet's face, not angry but satisfied, as if everything were proceeding according to plan. They materialized in a place Harry didn't recognize, a circular stone chamber lit by glowing fungi, damp with condensation and smelling of earth and old magic. Where are we? He asked, looking around warily. Emergency waypoint, Wednesday explained, catching her breath. One of my family's safe houses. Somewhere beneath London, though I couldn't tell you exactly where. Harry helped her to her feet, noticing she was favoring one arm. You're hurt. Just a graze. One of their binding curses caught me. She examined the thin red line circling her wrist, exactly where the Void Walker's tendril had grabbed her during the ritual. An interesting coincidence. Through their bond, Harry sensed her analyzing the connection, filing it away for future reference. Her mind worked differently from his, seeing patterns, making connections, constantly cataloging information. We need to contact the others, he said. Warn them about tomorrow night. Wednesday nodded, moving to what appeared to be a natural stone basin in the center of the chamber. This connects to the family network. We can communicate from here. She pricked her finger, letting 3 drops of blood fall into the water. It turned black, then silver, reflecting not their faces but the interior of Weasley's Wizard Wheez's back room. Ron's startled expression appeared. Bloody hell, he exclaimed. Where are you two? What happened to your foreheads? Long story, Harry said quickly. The Crimson Court attacked us. They're completing the ritual tomorrow night at the Whitechapel site. Hermione appeared beside Ron. We know. Luna confirmed it, there's been unusual activity there all day. The Ministry's aware too, but Crowley's keeping them focused on finding you instead of stopping the ritual. Because he wants it to happen, Wednesday realized. He needs the threat to be real to justify using the artifacts he took from the Department of Mysteries. He set a trap, Harry agreed. Once the ritual completes, he'll move in, using us as scapegoats. What about the bonding ritual? Hermione asked carefully, eyeing the marks on their foreheads. Did it work? Harry and Wednesday exchanged glances, a wealth of communication passing between them without words. Yes, Wednesday answered. We're connected now. We can access each other's knowledge, coordinate our magic. And we learned something important, Harry added. About previous gatekeepers. None of them found a permanent solution, they just contained the entity until the next cycle. Because they were afraid to confront it directly, Wednesday continued. They created seals that would eventually weaken instead of addressing the source. Ron looked between them, disconcerted by their seamless exchange. So what's your plan? Confrontation didn't work out so well for us against Voldemort until we found all the Horcruxes. This is different, Harry said. The Void Walker isn't here yet, it's still trying to come through. If we can control the convergence point instead of just sealing it, we might be able to redirect its energy, Wednesday finished. Use its own power to strengthen the dimensional barriers permanently. Hermione's expression was concerned. That sounds incredibly dangerous. You'd be channeling an immense amount of power. That's why we needed the bond, Harry explained. Together, we can manage what neither could handle alone. We need to prepare, Wednesday said. The court will complete the triangle tomorrow night, which means we have 3 days until the celestial alignment, when the Void Walker will be able to fully manifest at the convergence point. We'll keep monitoring ministry movements, Hermione promised. And we've got people watching the Whitechapel site, though they can't intervene without exposing themselves. Just be careful, Ron added. Crowley's got people everywhere. And you two look different. Not just the forehead things. Like you're merging, Hermione supplied, studying them with academic interest. Your mannerisms, your speech patterns, you're mirroring each other. Harry felt a flicker of alarm through his bond with Wednesday, she'd noticed it too but had been suppressing the concern. Their personalities were bleeding into each other, just as the grimoire had warned might happen. It's temporary, Wednesday said, though Harry could feel her uncertainty. A side effect of the ritual. Once this is over. She let the sentence hang, and Harry realized neither of them knew what would happen once this was over. Would they return to separate lives? Would the connection fade? Did they want it to? We should go, Harry said, aware of their vulnerability. The court might be able to track this communication. After ending the connection, they explored their surroundings. The chamber connected to a series of tunnels that Wednesday explained formed part of an ancient network beneath London, older than the sewers, older even than Roman settlements. My ancestors used these passages to move undetected during times when our kind of magic was particularly persecuted, she explained, leading him through the labyrinth. They connect to various important sites throughout the city. Including the Tower of London? Harry guessed. Wednesday nodded. Not directly to the convergence point, that's too heavily warded, but close enough for reconnaissance. They traveled through tunnels that shouldn't logically fit where they were, spaces that bent and folded in ways that reminded Harry of the Room of Requirement at Hogwarts. Eventually, they emerged into a larger chamber that showed signs of recent use, a table with maps, shelves containing books and supplies, even a small kitchen area and 2 cots. Another Adam's safe house? Harry asked. My personal research base, Wednesday corrected. I established it when I began investigating the prophecy months ago. Harry examined the materials spread across the table, detailed notes on the Void Walker, maps of ley line convergences beneath London, genealogical charts tracking both their family lines back centuries. You've been studying this for longer than you let on, he realized. Through their bond, he sensed her hesitation, then her decision to be honest. I've known about our connection since I was 16. My grandmother had a vision, saw me standing with a scarred man at the threshold between worlds. 7 years, Harry said, surprised. You've been preparing for this for 7 years? Adamses take prophecies seriously, she replied with a slight shrug. While you were fighting Voldemort, I was researching interdimensional entities. Different approaches to the same eventual goal. Harry wasn't sure how to feel about this revelation. Part of him, the part still sensitive about being manipulated by prophecies, wanted to be angry that she'd known so much for so long. But through their bond, he sensed her reasons were practical, not manipulative. She'd prepared because that's who she was, methodical, thorough, expecting the worst. So what now? He asked instead. We can't stop tomorrow's ritual. We can't approach the convergence point until the alignment. 3 days of waiting. Not waiting, Wednesday corrected. Preparing. She moved to a trunk in the corner, opening it to reveal an array of magical items Harry didn't recognize, objects made of materials that seemed to shift and change as he looked at them, books bound in substances he couldn't identify. These are tools specifically designed for interdimensional work, she explained. Some from my family collection, others I've created based on research. You think they'll help against the Void Walker? They might give us an edge. She selected what appeared to be a pair of matching amulets. These are attuned to the specific frequency of our bonded magic. They'll help us maintain the connection even under stress. As she handed one to Harry, their fingers touched. A surge of energy passed between them, momentarily intensifying their bond. For a heartbeat, he couldn't tell where his thoughts ended and hers began. Wednesday pulled back quickly, but not before Harry caught fragments of emotions she'd been keeping controlled, fear, not of the entity but of the connection between them, curiosity about how deep it could go, and something warmer, less definable. Sorry, she said, composing herself. The bond is still stabilizing. It makes physical contact intense. Harry nodded, understanding better than she realized. He'd felt the same disorienting blend when they touched, a momentary dissolution of boundaries that was both frightening and exhilarating. We should rest, he suggested. Take shifts. The court will be looking for us. I'll take first watch, Wednesday offered, moving to organize the materials they'd need. You can have the cot on the left. It's only slightly cursed. Harry laughed, then realized she might not be joking. Through their bond, he sensed her amusement at his reaction, a dark humor he was beginning to appreciate. As he settled onto the questionable cot, Harry reflected on how quickly his life had changed. A week ago, he'd been an Auror investigating ritual murders. Now he was bonded to Wednesday Addams through ancient magic, preparing to confront an interdimensional entity that threatened reality itself. Strangest of all, it felt almost right, as if the path he'd been on since defeating Voldemort had been leading to this moment, this partnership, this new purpose. Through their connection, he sensed Wednesday felt similarly, that despite the dangers, despite the prophecy's weight, this made a kind of sense neither had found before. As he drifted toward sleep, their bond remained active, a comforting awareness of her presence nearby. Whatever came next, whatever the prophecy demanded, they would face it together, not as pawns of fate, but as gatekeepers who chose their own path. The next 3 days passed in intensive preparation. They established a routine, taking turns resting while the other worked, though the bond made true privacy impossible. They learned to manage it, to maintain a mental distance that allowed individual thought while preserving the connection they would need. Through Hermione and Ron, they monitored developments. As predicted, the Crimson Court completed the third ritual at Whitechapel, activating the final point of their triangle. Ministry forces arrived too late, finding only the aftermath, 3 more bodies arranged with geometric precision, symbols carved into walls and flesh. Crowley used the incident to escalate his hunt for Harry and Wednesday, publicly declaring them the primary suspects. His special task force conducted raids on any location associated with either of them, forcing their friends into deeper hiding. Meanwhile, energy readings throughout London showed alarming spikes. Reality itself seemed to be growing thin, dimensional barriers weakening as the celestial alignment approached. Strange phenomena were reported across the city, objects moving on their own, shadows behaving unnaturally, people experiencing shared dreams of darkness and void. On the final night before the alignment, Harry and Wednesday sat across from each other in the underground chamber, reviewing their plan one last time. The convergence point will be heavily guarded, Harry noted, studying the map they'd created. The court on one side, ministry forces on the other. And the Void Walker's influence will be strongest there, Wednesday added. It will try to separate us, turn us against each other. Through their bond, they shared the same thought, their greatest vulnerability was each other. The connection that gave them strength could also be used against them if manipulated correctly. The amulets will help, Wednesday continued, touching the one hanging around her neck. And our preparation with the binding spell should give us control of the convergence point if we can reach it first. Harry nodded, then asked the question they'd both been avoiding, what happens after? If we succeed? Wednesday's dark eyes met his. Through their bond, he felt her uncertainty, not about the mission, but about what would follow. The bond will change, she said carefully. Not break completely, but transform. We'll retain a connection, but with more separation than we have now. And is that what you want? Harry pressed gently. A complex wave of emotion flowed through their bond, Wednesday's feelings too tangled for simple categorization. Amid the complexity, Harry sensed something clear, reluctance to return to complete isolation. What I want, she said finally, is to complete this mission successfully. To break the cycle that's bound our families for generations. After that. She left the thought unfinished. Harry understood. They'd been thrown together by prophecy, their connection forced by necessity. Whatever grew between them needed to develop naturally, not under the shadow of world-ending threats. One step at a time, he agreed. First, we save reality as we know it. Then we figure out everything else. A soft chime from their communication mirror interrupted the moment. Luna's dreamy face appeared in the reflection. Hello, gatekeepers, she greeted them. The stars have nearly aligned. I can see the patterns forming. Luna, where are you? Harry asked, concerned by the strange background behind her, what appeared to be the interior of an ancient stone structure. Near the convergence point, she replied serenely. I've been mapping the energy fluctuations. The dimensional thinning is proceeding faster than expected. The alignment isn't tomorrow, it's beginning now. Harry and Wednesday exchanged alarmed glances. Now. Wednesday repeated. That's not possible. The astronomical calculations are based on conventional dimensional physics, Luna finished. But the Void Walker is accelerating the process. It's pulling the alignment forward, using the energy from the completed triangle. We need to move, Harry said, already gathering their prepared materials. If the alignment has shifted, the court will already be at the convergence point. And Crowley, Wednesday added grimly. With his ministry forces and whatever he took from the Department of Mysteries. Luna's expression grew serious, a rare sight. There's something else you should know. I've detected another presence near the convergence point. Something ancient and powerful, but different from the Void Walker. It feels familiar somehow. Another entity? Wednesday asked sharply. I don't think so, Luna replied. More like a guardian. Something tied to the convergence point itself. It's been dormant until now. Before they could question her further, Luna's image flickered. They're coming. I have to go. The entrance is through the White Tower, beneath the oldest foundation stone. Look for the raven that isn't a raven. The connection cut off abruptly. Luna. Harry called, but the mirror showed only their reflections now. We have to go, Wednesday said, slinging her prepared bag over her shoulder. If she's right about the acceleration, then we're already late to the apocalypse, Harry finished grimly. Fantastic. They moved quickly through the ancient tunnels, Wednesday navigating with an innate sense of direction that impressed even Harry's aura-trained instincts. As they drew closer to the Tower of London, they could feel the dimensional distortion, reality itself becoming less solid, more malleable. The barriers are already weakening, Wednesday observed as they paused at a junction. We don't have much time. Harry checked their supplies one last time, the obsidian daggers, the protective amulets, the specially prepared potions and talismans. Everything they'd prepared over the past 3 days, now about to be put to the ultimate test. "Ready?" he asked, though the question was almost redundant with their bond conveying his determination directly. Wednesday nodded, her dark eyes reflecting the soft light of their wands. Together. As they moved toward the final confrontation, Harry felt their bond strengthen, their separate magics intertwining. Whatever waited at the convergence point, Crimson Court, Ministry forces, or the Void Walker itself, they would face it not as individuals bound by prophecy, but as gatekeepers who had chosen their path. Reality itself hung in the balance. But for the first time facing such stakes, Harry didn't feel alone. Chapter 3, Beyond Prophecy. The tunnels beneath the Tower of London grew narrower as Harry and Wednesday advanced, centuries-old stone pressing in from all sides. Water dripped from ancient mortar, creating rhythmic echoes that sounded unnervingly like whispered voices. Their wand-light cast grotesque shadows that seemed to move independently, stretching and contracting with each step. "We're getting close," Wednesday whispered, though speaking normally would have been fine. Something about this place demanded hushed tones. "Feel it?" Harry nodded. The air had changed, heavier, charged with potential, like the moment before a lightning strike. Through their bond, he sensed Wednesday's heightened awareness, her natural affinity for liminal spaces making her more sensitive to the dimensional thinning. "Luna said to look for the raven that isn't a raven," Harry recalled, scanning the walls. "Any idea what that means?" "The ravens are guardians of the tower," Wednesday replied. "Legend says if they leave, the kingdom will fall. But there's an older story, that one raven isn't a bird at all, but a sentinel left by ancient guardians." They reached a circular chamber where 3 tunnels converged. The stonework here was different, older than the rest, with symbols carved into each brick. At the center stood a stone pedestal, weathered by time but still recognizable as a bird perched in eternal vigilance. "A raven that isn't a raven," Harry said, approaching the statue. Wednesday touched the stone bird's eye. "In my family's records, the sentinel would reveal the way to those with the right perspective." Harry understood immediately. Through their bond, they synchronized their magic, channeling it through the marks on their foreheads, the symbols of the gatekeepers. The stone raven's eyes began to glow with soft blue light, the same color they'd seen in the temple beneath Stonehenge. The floor beneath the pedestal slid open, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness. Cold, damp air rushed upward, carrying the scent of salt water and something older, primordial, like the first oceans of Earth. "It's underwater," Harry realized. "The convergence point is beneath the Thames." "Makes sense," Wednesday nodded. "Water amplifies magical energies, especially at dimensional boundaries. It's why so many ancient rituals required crossing bodies of water." They descended the staircase cautiously. The steps were slick with moisture, worn smooth by countless feet over millennia. As they spiraled deeper, the walls began to change, stone giving way to a material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "This isn't natural stone," Wednesday observed, touching the black surface. "It's solidified dimensional residue, what happens when our reality and the void press against each other for centuries." The staircase ended at a vast underground chamber partially filled with water. What Harry had initially thought was a pool was actually the Thames itself, flowing through the ancient space. The chamber's architecture defied conventional design, arches that twisted at impossible angles, columns that seemed to bend when viewed from different perspectives, a ceiling that appeared both soaring and claustrophobically low simultaneously. "The alignment's already affecting perception," Wednesday murmured. "Reality becoming malleable." At the chamber's center, a raised platform emerged from the water, a perfect circle of the same black material as the walls. Atop it stood an altar identical to the one they'd seen in the temple and their shared dreams. Around the platform, water flowed in unnatural patterns, sometimes moving against gravity itself. "There's no one here," Harry said, scanning the chamber warily. "We beat them." A soft laugh echoed through the space, feminine, confident, familiar. "Not quite, Mr. Potter." From the shadows stepped Lilith Thornhart, no longer the nervous informant who'd approached Draco. Her posture exuded confidence, her eyes sharp with intelligence and ambition. Behind her, several figures in hooded robes emerged, not wearing the crimson of the court, but darker garments with silver symbols that matched those on the altar. Lilith, Wednesday acknowledged coldly. I thought you might be playing both sides. Not both sides, Wednesday dear. My own side. Lilith moved toward them with predatory grace. The Crimson Court are fanatics. The Ministry are bureaucrats. Neither understands the true potential of what's happening here. And you do. Harry kept his wand ready, assessing the positions of Lilith's followers. Better than most, Lilith smiled. I've spent decades studying interdimensional entities, not to worship them like the court, not to banish them like the ministry, but to understand them. To harness their power. Through their bond, Harry felt Wednesday's recognition. Lilith's ambition was something she understood, perhaps had even felt herself. The desire for forbidden knowledge was a powerful temptation. You want to absorb the Void Walker's power, Wednesday said. Become a conduit yourself. Just a portion of it, Lilith corrected. Enough to elevate my magic beyond conventional limitations. I don't want to destroy reality, merely expand my place within it. That's not how it works, Harry said. The entity doesn't share power, it consumes those who channel it. Lilith's smile didn't waver. Perhaps for most. But I've prepared. Modified the ritual. With the right adjustments, I can siphon energy during the transfer process. You're delusional, Wednesday stated flatly. The moment you interfere with the convergence, the Void Walker will overwhelm you. We'll see. Lilith gestured to her followers. Secure them. The gatekeepers must be in position when the alignment peaks. Her followers moved forward, drawing wands and ritual daggers. Harry and Wednesday reacted in perfect synchronization, their bonded magic creating a defensive shield that expanded outward in a wave of force, throwing Lilith's people back. Lilith herself remained standing, protected by some personal shield. Impressive. The bonding ritual worked better than expected. You knew about that? Harry asked, maintaining the shield while Wednesday prepared a counterattack. I suggested it to the Adams girl months ago, Lilith revealed with a smug smile. Left just enough breadcrumbs in the university archives for her to find. The stronger your connection, the more power you'll channel, and the more I can siphon. Wednesday's expression darkened, a surge of anger flowing through their bond. You manipulated me. I guided you, Lilith corrected. Just as the prophecy guided both of you. We all have our roles to play. Before they could respond, a commotion erupted from the entrance they'd used. New voices echoed down the staircase, accompanied by the distinctive sounds of magical combat. Ah, Lilith sighed. Right on schedule. The other players arrive. The chamber suddenly filled with activity as two groups burst in from different entrances. From the staircase came Crimson Court members led by Madame Scarlet, while from a previously hidden doorway across the chamber emerged Ministry forces led by Erasmus Crowley himself. For a moment, all parties froze, assessing the situation, Lilith's group near the altar, Harry and Wednesday in the center, Crimson Court and Ministry forces at opposite sides of the chamber. The gatekeepers, Madame Scarlet's voice carried across the water. Right where they belong. Potter, Crowley's voice was cold with authority. You and the Adams girl are under arrest for illegal ritualistic magic and conspiracy to breach dimensional barriers. That's rich coming from you, Crowley, Harry called back. Planning to use that chronoturner to erase us after you take credit for stopping the incursion? Crowley's expression flickered briefly with surprise before hardening again. Whatever it takes to protect our world. Through their bond, Harry and Wednesday rapidly formulated a strategy. They were outnumbered, surrounded by three separate factions, all wanting to use them for different purposes. But they had one advantage, a unified purpose and a connection none of the others possessed. The altar, Wednesday communicated silently. We need to reach it before anyone else. Harry nodded imperceptibly. Around them, tension built as the three factions faced off, temporary alliances and betrayals calculating behind every leader's eyes. Enough discussion, Madame Scarlet declared, raising her ritual staff. The alignment peaks in minutes. The walker awaits its vessels. She struck the ground with her staff, sending a pulse of magic across the chamber. At the same moment, Crowley signaled his aurors to attack, while Lilith's followers moved to intercept both groups. Chaos erupted. Spells crisscrossed the chamber, reflecting off the strange black walls with unpredictable trajectories. The water around the central platform began to churn violently, creating a natural barrier that separated the combatants. Harry and Wednesday used the confusion to move toward the altar, deflecting attacks from all sides. Their bonded magic created patterns none of their attackers anticipated, Harry's defensive spells seamlessly flowing into Wednesday's more esoteric counterattacks. The water. Wednesday shouted as they neared the platform. Use it to clear a path. Understanding her intent through their bond, Harry directed his magic at the churning Thames. Together, they manipulated the water, creating a massive wave that swept across the chamber, forcing their attackers back. The water moved unnaturally under their combined will, forming a temporary corridor to the altar. They sprinted forward, reaching the platform just as the chamber began to shake. Above them, the impossible ceiling rippled like liquid, colors that shouldn't exist bleeding through from somewhere else. The alignment was beginning. Stop them. Lilith commanded, recovering faster than the others. She hurled a binding spell that Wednesday deflected with an obsidian dagger, the blade absorbing the magic with a hungry hiss. Madame Scarlet and several court members fought through the receding water, their robes dragging them down but their determination undiminished. The vessels must be prepared. The walker comes. From the other side, Crowley advanced with grim purpose, a strange device in his hands, the chronoturner, Harry realized. Its complicated mechanisms glowed with unnatural light, distorting time around it in visible waves. This ends now, Potter, Crowley called. I won't let another dark wizard with a prophecy destroy what we've built. Harry almost laughed at the irony, being called a dark wizard after spending his life fighting them. We're trying to stop this, Crowley, not cause it. By performing blood magic. Creating bonds with dark artifacts. I've seen the evidence. You've changed sides, Potter. Corrupted by power just like the others. Through their bond, Wednesday sent a wave of understanding. Crowley truly believed what he was saying, his fear of another Voldemort had blinded him to the real threat. They reached the altar as the first-dimensional tremors shook the chamber. The stone surface began to glow with the now familiar blue light, symbols appearing and flowing across it like living things. Together, Wednesday said, placing her hands on the altar. Harry joined her, their fingers intertwining. The moment they made contact, the marks on their foreheads flared brilliantly, sending beams of light toward the ceiling. The symbols on the altar responded, swirling faster, organizing into patterns that matched their connected energy. Around them, the battle continued, but with increasing difficulty as reality itself became unstable. Spells behaved erratically, sometimes reversing direction or transforming into different effects entirely. The water rose and fell in impossible patterns, occasionally hanging in mid-air before crashing down again. It's working. Wednesday's eyes gleamed with excitement and trepidation. We're establishing control over the convergence point. But their success was short-lived. A targeted attack from Lilith's followers struck them simultaneously, not aiming to injure but to disrupt their concentration. The momentary break in their focus was enough for the other factions to converge on the platform. Crowley reached them first, the chronoturner raised. Stand down, Potter. This device will remove you from the equation entirely if necessary. Before Harry could respond, Madame Scarlet landed on the platform behind them. The vessels belonged to the walker. She thrust her staff between Harry and Wednesday, trying to physically separate them. The disruption worked. Their hands broke apart, the controlled energy pattern dispersing into chaos. The altar's glow intensified, but now pulsed with an unstable rhythm that sent shockwaves through the chamber. "What have you done?" Wednesday shouted over the growing cacophony of dimensional distortion. Madame Scarlet smiled triumphantly. "Prepared you for your true purpose. The walker doesn't need gatekeepers who control the threshold, it needs vessels who open it." The ceiling above the altar tore open, not physically, but dimensionally, reality itself splitting to reveal the void beyond. Unlike normal darkness, this was an absence so complete it hurt to look at directly. Within it, something moved with purpose. Harry felt it immediately, the Void Walker's presence, immense and alien, pressing against the thin membrane of reality. Through their disrupted bond, he sensed Wednesday feeling it too, the weight of ancient awareness focusing on them both. "Now!" Lilith shouted to her followers. The siphoning ritual. Her people formed a circle around the platform, beginning an incantation that created threads of silver energy connecting to the tear above. Lilith stood directly behind the altar, positioning herself to intercept the energy that would flow through Harry and Wednesday. "Stop this madness!" Crowley commanded, activating the chronoturner. Time distorted around them, movements becoming sluggish except for Crowley himself. "By authority of the Ministry of Magic, I am sealing this breach." But the device wasn't designed for dimensional tears. As its energy contacted the void beyond, it sparked and whined, time distortion spreading unpredictably. Crowley staggered back, the device overloading in his hands. Through the dimensional tear, something reached through, not a physical appendage, but a tendril of pure will, darker than the absence around it. It touched each person on the platform in turn, assessing, tasting their essence. When it reached Harry and Wednesday, it paused. Through their bond, damaged but still functional, they felt the entity's interest, its recognition of the gatekeepers, its ancient plan coming to fruition. "You are mine now," a voice that wasn't a voice resonated directly in their minds. The tendril split, one part wrapping around Harry, the other around Wednesday. The sensation was indescribable, cold beyond temperature, a pressure that threatened to collapse them from within, a presence that began seeping into their very thoughts. "Fight it!" Harry gasped, reaching for Wednesday across the altar. Their fingers touched, the bond flaring back to life, but changed now, influenced by the entity's presence. Through it, Harry could see what the Void Walker was offering Wednesday: knowledge beyond human comprehension, power that defied natural laws, understanding of mysteries that had consumed her family for generations. And she could see what it offered him: freedom from expectation, from prophecy, from being the eternal hero. A chance to reshape a world that had used and discarded him when convenient, true justice rather than flawed human institutions. For a terrible moment, Harry felt Wednesday's temptation, her natural curiosity, her desire to know what others feared to learn. And she felt his exhaustion, his disillusionment with the world he'd saved more than once. "Accept your destiny," Madame Scarlet urged, her voice distant through the entity's overwhelming presence. "Become the vessels of rebirth." "Take control," Lilith countered, her ritual intensifying. "Channel but don't surrender." "End this, Potter." Crowley demanded, the failing chronoturner creating pockets of accelerated and slowed time throughout the chamber. The Void Walker's influence deepened, pushing against their mental defenses. Harry felt his identity beginning to blur, memories and thoughts becoming fluid, replaceable. Beside him, Wednesday fought the same battle, her naturally compartmentalized mind providing more resistance but slowly yielding. "You cannot resist. This is your purpose. The prophecy demands it." The entity's certainty washed over them like a physical wave. It had orchestrated this moment across centuries, manipulating bloodlines, ensuring the gatekeepers would emerge precisely when needed, creating the perfect vessels. But in that certainty lay its weakness. Through their bond, Harry and Wednesday shared the same realization: the entity didn't understand choice. It comprehended destiny, prophecy, cosmic alignments, but not the human capacity to reject predetermined paths. "We are not vessels," Wednesday stated, her voice gaining strength as she pushed back against the entity's influence. "And we're not just gatekeepers," Harry added, gripping her hand tighter. Together, they focused on their connection, not the prophecy that had brought them together, but the bond they had willingly formed. The understanding that had grown between them, the respect, the recognition of kindred spirits despite vastly different backgrounds. "We choose a different path," they said in unison. Through their bond, they created something new, a pattern of energy neither had envisioned alone. Instead of merely sealing the breach or channeling the entity's power, they began to redirect it, using the Voidwalker's own essence against it. The symbols on the altar responded, rearranging into configurations that hadn't been seen since the temple's creation. The blue light intensified, rising in a column that intersected with the tear above. "What are you doing?" Madame Scarlet screamed, sensing her master's sudden confusion. "Something new," Wednesday answered, her eyes now glowing with the same blue light as the altar. Harry felt their magic transform as it interacted with the entity's power, becoming neither light nor dark but something else entirely. Dimensional magic, existing at the boundaries between realities. The Voidwalker fought back, its tendrils tightening around them, trying to force submission. But with each attack, they learned more about its nature, its weaknesses. Through Wednesday, Harry accessed knowledge her family had gathered over generations about interdimensional entities. Through Harry, Wednesday channeled the protective power that had helped him survive Voldemort's killing curse twice. "The barriers," Harry gasped, seeing the pattern forming. "We can strengthen them permanently, use its own energy to seal all potential entry points." "A recursive lock," Wednesday nodded, understanding immediately. "The more it pushes, the stronger the barriers become." Together, they began the incantation, words neither had known before this moment, flowing through their connected consciousness. Their bonded magic created a framework that the entity's power was forced to follow, redirecting it back into the dimensional boundaries it sought to break. The chamber shook violently as the pattern took hold. Water rose from the Thames in perfect spirals, freezing in mid-air before shattering into light. The impossible architecture of the temple began to stabilize, angles returning to normal physics, the ceiling solidifying. "No!" Lilith cried, seeing her chance at power slipping away. She lunged forward, ritual dagger aimed at the junction where Harry and Wednesday's hands met on the altar. "The power is mine to take." Her attack never landed. The redirected energy caught her mid-leap, suspending her between moments. Around her, similar effects trapped her followers, the Crimson Court members, and Crowley's Aurors, not harmed but contained, unable to interfere. Only Crowley himself remained mobile, the malfunctioning chronoturner creating a bubble of distorted time around him. He stared in disbelief as Harry and Wednesday continued their work, the dimensional tear above them slowly closing, sealing not with a temporary patch but with a permanent barrier. The Voidwalker's presence roared in their minds, outrage, disbelief, and for the first time, fear. It had never encountered gatekeepers who refused to play their assigned roles, who created a third option beyond vessel or guardian. "This is not the prophecy. This is not your purpose." "We make our own purpose," Harry replied, the words echoing with power. "And write our own prophecy," Wednesday finished. The final phase of their improvised ritual began. The marks on their foreheads connected with beams of light that intersected with the tear above. Instead of merely forcing the entity back, they wove its energy into the fabric of reality itself, creating a self-sustaining barrier that would grow stronger with each attempt to breach it. The Voidwalker fought desperately, throwing everything it had against them. Visions of power, of knowledge, of desires fulfilled flooded their minds. When those failed, it shifted to pain, to fear, to memories of their greatest losses. But through it all, their connection held. Where one weakened, the other strengthened. When Harry faltered under visions of his parents, of Sirius, of everyone he'd lost, Wednesday's methodical mind kept them focused. When Wednesday was tempted by offered knowledge that would answer her lifetime of questions, Harry's moral center reminded her of the cost. "It's working!" Harry shouted over the dimensional thunderclaps that shook the chamber. The tear contracted, the Void Walker's tendrils forced back into the space between dimensions. But as it retreated, it made one final, desperate attempt, focusing all its remaining influence on Wednesday, the gatekeeper whose natural affinity for darkness made her more susceptible. Harry felt her consciousness waver through their bond, her grip on his hand loosening as the entity showed her a vision of what she could become with its power, a being of limitless knowledge, unfettered by human constraints, able to explore the darkest corners of existence without fear. Wednesday. Harry called, both aloud and through their connection. Stay with me. For a terrible moment, he thought he'd lost her. Her eyes had gone completely black, her face expressionless as the entity's influence deepened. The ritual faltered, the tear beginning to widen again. Harry did the only thing he could think of, he stopped fighting through magic and reached for her humanly. Leaning across the altar, still maintaining their physical connection, he kissed her. The contact sent a shock through their bond unlike anything before, raw emotion cutting through the entity's cold influence. Not just determination or shared purpose, but something warmer, something the Void Walker couldn't comprehend or counter. Wednesday gasped, her eyes clearing. Harry. Together, he reminded her, forehead pressed against hers. She nodded, a rare smile touching her lips. Together. They resumed the ritual with renewed strength, their connection deeper than before. The tear closed with a sound like reality itself sighing in relief, the Void Walker's presence forced back beyond the dimensional barriers they'd created. The altar's glow gradually faded, returning to dormant stone. Around them, the chamber stabilized completely, the Thames settling back into normal patterns, the architecture solid and definable again. As the ritual's effects dissipated, the others in the chamber were released from their suspension. Lilith collapsed to her knees, her ambitions literally falling through her fingers. Madame Scarlet stared upward in disbelief, her master gone, her purpose denied. Crowley dropped the now useless chronoturner, which dissolved into temporal dust. For a moment, no one spoke, the magnitude of what had happened settling over the chamber like a physical weight. Then slow clapping broke the silence. Luna Lovegood stepped from a shadowed alcove, a serene smile on her face. That was quite impressive. A completely new ritual, created on the spot. I've never seen anything like it. Luna. Harry stared in disbelief. How long have you been there? Oh, the whole time, she replied airily. I was watching the dimensional fluctuations. Fascinating patterns. Much more complex than Raxpert migrations. Behind her emerged other figures, Hermione and Ron, Draco Malfoy, and to Harry's surprise, the Minister of Magic himself, followed by several senior unspeakables. Minister, Crowley straightened immediately. I can explain, I believe I've seen enough, Undersecretary Crowley, the minister said coldly. Unauthorized removal of restricted artifacts, false imprisonment orders, conspiracy to alter the timeline, all while the real threat was being addressed by the very people you were hunting. Crowley's face drained of color. But the evidence, their involvement in dark rituals, was exactly what was needed to prevent catastrophe, Hermione interjected, stepping forward with an official-looking folder. As the research I submitted to your office 3 days ago clearly explained, research you apparently misplaced while pursuing your own agenda. We've been monitoring everything, Ron added with satisfaction. Every conversation, every order, every lie. Turns out, when you're trying to arrest the boy who lived, people get suspicious and start keeping records. Ministry officials moved to secure Crowley, Madame Scarlet, Lilith, and their respective followers. The chamber filled with Aurors and Unspeakables, securing the site and collecting evidence. Through it all, Harry and Wednesday remained at the altar, hands still joined, their bond humming with the aftermath of channeling such power. Are you okay? Harry asked, both aloud and through their connection. Wednesday nodded slightly. Different. But okay. He understood perfectly. The ritual had changed them both in ways they were only beginning to comprehend. Their bond had evolved, no longer the raw merger of the initial ritual, but something more integrated, more natural. They retained their individual identities while sharing a connection deeper than either had experienced before. The entity, he asked. Contained, she confirmed. Not just banished until the next alignment, but truly contained. The barrier we created will strengthen with time, using its own energy against it. We broke the cycle, Harry realized. After all these centuries, all these gatekeepers. We chose a different path. Wednesday's dark eyes studied him thoughtfully. That kiss was unexpected. Harry felt himself flush slightly. It was all I could think of. You were slipping away. A fortunate instinct. The ghost of a smile touched her lips. Though perhaps we should investigate if other methods would have been equally effective. For scientific purposes, of course. Before Harry could respond, Hermione approached, professionalism barely containing her relief. The minister wants to speak with you both. And the unspeakables have about 1,000 questions. I imagine they do, Wednesday said dryly. What happens now? Harry asked, glancing at the officials securing the various prisoners. To them. Crowley faces trial for abuse of power and unauthorized use of restricted artifacts, Hermione explained. Madame Scarlet and the court members will be held in a special facility designed for those involved with interdimensional entities. And Lilith. She sighed. Her case is complicated. The unspeakables are actually interested in her research, if not her methods. And us? Wednesday asked, her tone making it clear she had no intention of being detained or studied. Hermione smiled slightly. That's what the minister wants to discuss. You two just prevented an interdimensional catastrophe using methods no one has seen before. There's talk of creating a new department. Harry raised his eyebrows. A department for what exactly? Monitoring interdimensional threats, Ron supplied, joining them. Who better to run it than the two people who actually understand how it all works now? The idea was surprising but not unwelcome. Harry had grown disillusioned with standard Auror work, and through their bond, he could feel Wednesday's interest in continuing to explore the boundaries between dimensions, safely, under controlled conditions. Partners, he asked her, the question containing layers of meaning beyond professional collaboration. Wednesday considered him, a warmth in her dark eyes that few people ever got to see. I suppose someone needs to keep you from recklessly kissing interdimensional entities. That was one time, Harry protested, grinning despite himself. As they were led from the chamber to deal with the aftermath of their adventure, Harry reflected on how drastically his life had changed in such a short time. A routine murder investigation had led to an ancient prophecy, a battle against an interdimensional entity, and a connection with someone who understood parts of him he'd never been able to explain to others. The mark of the gatekeeper still glowed faintly on his forehead, matched by Wednesday's. Not a scar of victimhood like his lightning bolt had been, but a symbol of choice, of defying prophecy rather than being defined by it. Whatever came next, they would face it together, the boy who lived and the girl who embraced death, united not by fate but by their decision to forge their own path beyond prophecy. 3 months later, Harry stood at the window of their new office, watching London carry on below, blissfully unaware of how close it had come to destruction. Behind him, Wednesday sat at a desk covered with ancient texts and modern monitoring equipment, an apt visual representation of their complementary approaches. Energy spike in Bristol, she noted, studying a device that resembled a compass crossed with a seismograph. Minor, though. Probably just residual effects from the alignment. Harry nodded, returning to his own desk where reports from various magical agencies were organized into neat piles, a habit he'd unconsciously adopted from Wednesday through their bond. The Department for Interdimensional Security and Research occupied a unique position in the ministry hierarchy, technically under the Department of Mysteries, but with operational independence that would have been unthinkable before the Void Walker incident. They answered directly to the minister, their methods largely unquestioned due to their proven results. In the months since the Convergence Point battle, they had identified and secured 7 potential weak spots in the dimensional barriers around Britain. Each case had strengthened their working relationship, and the personal one that had developed alongside it. Their bond had stabilized into something neither had anticipated. They remained distinct individuals, but with a permanent connection that allowed them to share thoughts and feelings when desired, to coordinate their magic with unprecedented precision, and to understand each other in ways that made conventional relationships seem shallow by comparison. Hermione's report came in, Harry said, scanning a detailed analysis of temporal fluctuations related to dimensional thinning. She's identified a pattern in the incidents we've been tracking. Let me guess, Wednesday replied without looking up from her own work. They correlate with celestial events, but not the ones typically associated with magical surges. Harry grinned. Reading my mind again? Reading Hermione. She's been developing that theory for weeks. Wednesday finally looked up, her dark eyes meeting his. Besides, I don't need to read your mind to know what you're thinking most of the time. That was true enough. Even without their magical bond, they'd developed the kind of understanding that comes from shared purpose and genuine compatibility. What had begun as a forced partnership had evolved into something neither had expected to find. A knock at their door interrupted the moment. Luna entered without waiting for a response, carrying what appeared to be a plant that occasionally phased out of visible existence. "Hello, gatekeepers," she greeted them cheerfully. "I brought you a dimensional fern. They only exist in our reality every third Tuesday, but they're excellent at detecting interdimensional visitors." "Thank you, Luna," Harry said sincerely, clearing space for the unusual gift. Luna had joined their department as a consultant, her unique perspective proving invaluable for understanding phenomena that defied conventional magical theory. "Any news on the Cornwall anomaly?" Wednesday asked, referring to a recent detection that had prompted Luna to investigate personally. "Oh yes," Luna's eyes lit up. "It's not an incursion attempt as we feared. It's more of a dimensional echo. Like a memory of a place that existed there in another reality." She placed a folder on Wednesday's desk containing photographs of strange light patterns and energy readings. "It's actually quite beautiful. The barriers between worlds are thin there, but not in a dangerous way. More like a window that allows glimpses but not passage." Harry moved to examine the photos over Wednesday's shoulder, his hand resting naturally on the back of her chair. The casual contact sent a pleasant hum through their bond, a reminder of the connection that had become an integral part of both their lives. "Worth investigating in person?" he asked, already knowing Wednesday's answer. She found these boundary phenomena fascinating, collecting data on the different ways dimensions interacted when not under threat from entities like the Void Walker. "Definitely," she confirmed. "We should schedule a field assessment next week." Luna watched them with her characteristic dreamy smile. "You two have balanced quite nicely. Your auras have harmonized, neither fully dark nor fully light, but complementary." That was perhaps the best description of what had developed between them, a balance that allowed each to remain true to themselves while creating something stronger together. Harry's inherent optimism tempering Wednesday's macabre tendencies, her unflinching acceptance of darkness helping him acknowledge aspects of himself he'd long suppressed. After Luna left, promising to bring more interdimensionally unstable plants, Harry returned to the window, watching storm clouds gather over the city. "Your mother sent another invitation," he mentioned casually. "Something about a family reunion in a haunted Romanian castle." Wednesday nodded, closing the file she'd been reviewing. "Annual tradition. Great Uncle Vulcan usually tries to reanimate something unpleasant. Last year it was a troupe of medieval executioners. Thing had to play charades with them for hours until they returned to their graves." Harry had met most of the Addams family by now, finding them simultaneously exactly as strange as their reputation suggested and oddly more welcoming than many normal families he'd encountered. Their straightforward embrace of their peculiarities was refreshing after a lifetime of people who pretended to be something they weren't. "Should we attend?" he asked, genuinely uncertain. Their relationship had progressed naturally since the convergence point, but navigating family expectations, especially in a family like the Addamses, remained complicated. Wednesday approached, standing beside him at the window. Mother has already had Lurch prepare the guest dungeon for you. It would be rude to refuse. The guest dungeon. How thoughtful. Despite his dry tone, Harry wasn't entirely joking. He'd learned that in the Addams household, accommodations like dungeons and torture chambers were signs of genuine affection. Wednesday's hand found his, their fingers intertwining naturally. The contact deepened their connection momentarily, allowing unspoken understanding to flow between them. We could visit Grimmauld Place after, Harry suggested. Show your family some traditional British wizarding architecture. I'm sure they'd find the severed house elf heads charming, Wednesday replied with that ghost of a smile that had become more frequent in recent months. A touch pedestrian compared to our family trophies, but charming nonetheless. Harry laughed, still amazed at how comfortable their banter had become, how easily they balanced the macabre and the mundane. The prophecy might have brought them together, but what kept them together was simpler and more profound, recognition of kindred spirits who had both been shaped by expectations not of their choosing. The device on Wednesday's desk suddenly chimed, indicating another dimensional anomaly. Without discussion, they moved in perfect synchronization, Wednesday gathering the monitoring equipment while Harry collected their field gear. Cornwall, he asked, though he already knew the answer through their bond. Wednesday nodded, eyes gleaming with that familiar mix of intellectual curiosity and subtle excitement. Something's coming through the window, Luna found. Not an entity, something smaller. Never a dull moment in interdimensional security, Harry commented, shouldering their equipment bag. Would you have it any other way? Wednesday asked, one eyebrow raised in challenge. Harry considered the life he'd found since that first meeting in an abandoned church, the purpose that had replaced his post-Voldemort drift, the partnership that had deepened into something neither of them had words for yet. Through their bond, he knew she was thinking the same. Not for all the peaceful desk jobs in the world, he answered truthfully. As they prepared to apparate to Cornwall, Harry reflected that prophecies were strange things, always true in some sense, but rarely in the ways people expected. He and Wednesday had been destined to stand together at the threshold between worlds, but what they'd done with that destiny had been entirely their own choice. And they continued to choose each other, day after day, adventure after adventure, the twice-marked survivor and the child of darkness, forging a path beyond prophecy. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.